Hello, a very good morning to you and welcome to Newsfile. My name is Samson Ladi Ayenini and you are watching us on your multi-TV's Joy News channel and also listening to us on radio on Joy 99.7 FM. We're streaming live also at myjoyonline.com and also on TV at www.multitvworld/streams. And today, we will have yet another interesting edition of your most authoritative news analysis show, Newsfile. It is brought to you by the kind sponsorship of MTN, Everywhere You Go, and Bank of Africa. Now, when we ask, fix our water problems, they say national debate. Fix our electricity problems, they say national debate. Fix our petroleum problems, they say national debate. But what is this debate really about? And why do we pay our politicians only for them to ask us to pay more so they can fix our problems, the problems that we face, for which we pay them to be in office? What at all do our politicians do for us? In the end, that is the most critical question I am asking on the show. Now, they are asking us to consider the removal of fuel subsidies because it is not benefiting the target. Who is the target? The poor. Have you forgotten that the rich also pay taxes? And let's remember some very basic facts. About 40% of all fuel is used up by government, ministries, departments, and agencies. About 40% of all fuels. I don't know where that statistic is coming from. Go and ask Dr. Nimoy Thompson. Also, government owes the VRA, the Volta River Authority, some $400 million. Okay, let's put that aside. Now, let's go to the presidential election petition at the Supreme Court and matters arising. Someone certainly has a problem with mathematics, as the EC is accused of struggling to account for some 241,000 voters on the electoral roll. And Hasdi Ochihene regretted his visit to President John Mahama last Tuesday. But can't the chiefs wait for him, I mean the president, or politicians for that matter, to visit them in the comforts of their palaces? The last time I checked, the politicians are very good at that. The $80 million GH Turkey Gold, 2 arrested, more being pursued, while national security smells a scam. And this is a matter or a subject of dispute pending in our courts. And very finally, if we have time, we will examine how Woyome stripped the monstrous Ioko of its clause in the courts of appeal. I am Samson Ladi Ayenini. We'll be right back.
I use this opportunity to thank a whole range of people. Number one is my God. Because where can I find my strength? It is only the Lord. And I thank the churches, the bishop, the pastors. Another time I will mention their names. And all those ordinary people and the mosques, those people who have come to support me in various ways. And some of their contributions have actually helped us to help a lot of the workers also. I thank them very much. I also thank a lot of you journalists. Albeit some of you have been very unkind in your reportage. You have followed the agenda setting You've done so many things that, in fact, the public will be asking you questions henceforth as we move ahead. I believe that you should do more questioning, you should do more research, and ask the political class as to their actions and explanation, not to take wholesome what they say. I also want to assure the Ghanaian people that they must respect the judiciary. It is the only arbiter in all cases, no matter how hard it has been. I'm telling the business community also to have courage to be able to protect their capital and resources, because it is by their own resources and taxations from their resources and profits and everything that this country is run. And if the chickens that lay the golden eggs are being attacked by those who actually manage the golden egg or consume it, the politicians, how many chickens will be left to lay the golden eggs? So those chickens who are the businesses must come together and also believe in the judiciary, that no matter how long it takes, with good lawyers, they will get to it. I use this opportunity to thank Lawyer Piesa Bwedu, Lawyer Boabin, and all the other team of lawyers. Is that even a lot of people thought that we were paying them. It was difficult to pay the legal fee. They were even ready to do it pro bono because of principle. They've done their best without being paid much to travel and do so much research and consistently have been with the side of the truth. And all those people who have been talking and calling themselves talk show people, people who have evidence and all those ones. A time is coming, the Ghanaian people will ask questions. This case has been hyped and hyped. And resources have been used where you have opposition and ruling government against one man. If it is not God, how could I have survived? 24/7, over 1 year. You bear me witness. The only thing I can say is that thank you, Lord. And thank you, all my good friends. Thank you, the Muslim community in Ghana. Thank you, the chiefs and people. And thank you, very decent Ghanaians who have watched your languages and have stood in the middle to understand what actually was going on. I will not comment further on the substantive issues before the court. Those things I still maintain that by the grace of God, no matter how long it takes the prosecution and the government to make sure that they finish this prosecution with their witnesses, no matter how long, by the grace of God, we will stand patiently and wait that justice is done. One thing I would not want to happen is the issue of Nole Prosoquai and all those ones. That's one thing I would not appreciate. But who am I to say what the government will do? But it's one thing that they should finish the case. A lot of resources of the state have been used in all this case. It started from Yoko. Then this orchestrated this kind of arrest or whatever it was meant to be. My incarceration for, I believe, doing nothing. My crime was going to court and challenge government and winning the case. That was my crime. And being begged to actually discuss and negotiate on the amount that the good courts have granted me. And agreeing that I would take the cost, only the cost that I spent, the money I spent over the time, and leave the lost profit and interest, which amounted to about 54 million, which pro bono gave to government and signed and filed in court. That was my crime. And I was put in cells. A bail condition that was given was a bail condition that has not occurred anywhere. But God came to my side. after leaving court, I've received calls from all over, some in the voter region, that some of the radio networks are saying that Afro-Women have been freed, his assets have been freed to him, and all that. I quite understand the excitement that a lot of people who have supported me all over the time have had. A lot of people too are a bit uncomfortable when I speak. But I think this is a landmark judgment which was delivered by the Court of Appeals and chaired by Justice of the Appeal, H. Aban, Mrs. Henrietta Aban, Mrs. I think I will need to explain my understanding of what happened in court today. Some time ago, over a year ago, precisely 22nd December 2011, Yoko placed a freezing order on my account, which number have been put in the judgment that we are holding. And by statutory order, went ex parte in the court to confirm the order. In going further to go and confirm the order as required by law another time, they went in and expanded the territory of the order. That expansion went to the freezing of all physical and financial assets of Alfred Agbisi Woyome, here in country and elsewhere. An order we went to the court to challenge. And this sent us to the Court of Appeal after the presiding judge refused to reverse such a widening order. So we went to the Court of Appeals. And this has been ranging on until today. I completely agree with the judgment of today. And the import of this is that the freezing order of the recipient account, which by a court order, the government of Ghana paid the judgment debt into. It was by a court order, have been frozen using proper legal procedure. As to whether it is justified or not, it is left.
You're welcome to the show. This is your most authoritative news analysis show, and your text messages are welcome. Your questions, your comments, and your views, all of them, they're welcome. 1422 is a text line, 1422-1760, 1760. You can send me an email at newsfile@myjoyonline.com. You can also post your comments on our Facebook wall. Just go look for Facebook, look for Joy 997 FM. I'm Samson Ladi Anyanini, and my guest in the studio, I'll introduce them shortly to you. But if you are just joining us, just for the benefit of the introduction that I gave earlier, I was just seeking to think aloud. I'm just thinking. And so don't take me too seriously that I'm asking that it appears that when we ask our politicians to fix our water problems, they mention national debate. Have you been following the the vetting of ministers designates that's been going on? They all talk about some national debates about problems that they are being, appointed to go and solve. So my question is, why is it that we're asking you fix our water problems? You say national debates. We talk about ask them to fix our electricity problems. They say national debates. Now we're asking them to fix the problem with petroleum, and they say national debates. They are referring to removal of subsidies, and the justification is that it is being smuggled because it is cheap, and also more importantly because the subsidy is not reaching to the target. And who is the target? The poor. And I'm asking, have we forgotten that the rich also pay taxes? And the politicians, what at all do they do for us if all they have to do is to ask us to adjust? The subsidies, where are they coming from? Are they tax monies or not tax monies? I'm just asking a few questions, and my guest here will help us to understand some of the issues that have come up. And I was giving you some facts, very basic facts, that about 40% of fuels, all our fuels, is used up by government ministries, departments, and agencies. That's according to Dr. Nimoy Thompson. I'm sure you trust him. Now, government also owes the Volta River Authority some $400 million. $400 million. Who is creating the problem, and who is it that's supposed to solve it? And we will go to the next most important issue that came up in the week that deserves some discussion. The presidential election petition at the Supreme Court, matters arising. And I'm saying that it appears very obviously that someone has problems with mathematics. The EC is being accused of struggling to account for some 241,000 voters on the electoral roll. And tied to that, I'll be asking if the Ochihene has regretted his visit to the president, John Mahama, last Tuesday. You may have heard his lawyers say a few things and demand some apologies. And then the $80 million GH Turkey gold. 2 people have been arrested. Good news, thanks to the BNI. But more are being pursued, especially those who are supposed to have been directly involved in the export are being pursued. But the National Security Coordinator, Gbevlo Lati, smells a scum. Meanwhile, this matter is actually a matter pending in courts, in the court of Ghana. And finally, we will find time to look at the Woyomi matter as the Court of Appeal, gives him the opportunity to have access to his bank accounts that have been frozen and keeping only one of the accounts at the ADB where it is suspected or it is the case that the over 51 million was lodged. Over 51 million was lodged. Over 51 million was lodged. Your views, your comments are welcome. Your views, your comments are welcome. 1422 1760 1422 1760. My guests now, I will introduce them to you in just a minute. All right, don't worry. I'm laughing at some development here in the studio, and my production team is telling me to do a few things. All right, now let's get to know the gentlemen who are in the studio for the discussion. Now, I will start from my extreme left. You have Dr. Clement Apak. He is the convener of the Forum for Governance and Justice. Thank you very much for coming to the studio.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Great to have you, Doc. And Nana Akumia, my good friend. Nana Akumia is the Communications Director of the New Patriotic Party 2012. He's happy when I add that bit. Good morning, sir.
Morning, Samson.
How
I
you
understand now you're a consultant?
Consultant
to Joy FM?
Consultant to Joy FM. No, I'm working here, don't worry. And then we have Ras Mubarak. Ras Mubarak, who has been assigned here by the Honorable Boku Central MP, who is the Information and Media Relations Minister, Mahama Ayarga. Ras Mubarak is former MP aspirant for the Ablekuma North constituency. He's also a member of the NDC communications team. Good morning and welcome to the show.
Good morning, Samson.
Thanks indeed. Great. We also have Emmanuel Asigri. He is a member of the NPP's communications team 2012. Good morning and welcome, sir.
Good morning, Samson.
Great to have you guys. Now, let's start straight away to go to the very first issue. It's the debate about fuel subsidies, their relevance now, and we are aware of the national security through the national security coordinator, Colonel Bevlo Latte of an Operation Hunters that's been started to halt the fuel smuggling. Actually, he says, and I believe it is true, that the smuggling has national security implications, or fuel actually has national security implications. And so they are doing that. Now, you may have followed the debate all week long that subsidies ought to be removed because they would get the country into serious problem. Now, I will want to start, first of all, with Dr. Apak, Clement Apak, where he stands on the debate. So far, we've had the Bank of Ghana come to support the need for the removal of fuel subsidies because of what they say are risks ahead in 2013 if the subsidy is maintained. That currently, or in 2012, a total of some 1.2 billion Ghana cedis has been used to subsidize petroleum products. Now, in 2013, if we continue, we need some 2.4 billion Ghana cedis to keep that on. Dr. Park, where do you stand? Do we remove the subsidies or we shouldn't remove them? And already we are aware of dissenting views coming right from the House of Parliament, even from members of the NDC, that you don't remove the subsidies.
Thank you, Samson. And of course, I want to greet your cherished listeners and viewers. This is the first time I've made an appearance on this platform.
No, this is not your first time.
This
is your second time. This year, correct.
Yes. You didn't allow me.
I'm in a hurry, sorry.
I can understand that. I think that we can all appreciate why a subject of this nature will raise a lot of passions and, of course, will generate debate. Because whether we like it or not, our lives are influenced one way or the other by the availability of fuel. Now, it is also important to understand that when we speak of fuel, we are not just speaking about petrol. You know, we speak about kerosene, we speak about diesel, and we also speak about pre-mixed fuel as well. The issue of fuel subsidies, whether they should be removed or not, I think has to be contextualized within the general well-being and health of our economy. Why do we even need subsidies in the first place? I believe that those who first mooted the idea of having subsidies in place did so largely because there was the need to try and cushion, if you like, reduce the burden on the people, which comes as a result of perhaps the high cost of fuel and petroleum products.
That's so.
Now, if we agree that this is something that we need to cushion the burden on, particularly the lowest echelons of our economic hierarchy in this country, and if we agree that there are mitigating factors that are going to make it impossible for us to continue to subsidize, then what we have to start doing as a nation is to have what you describe the politicians as using as their favorite word these days, a national debate about looking at it, adjusting it, but tinkering with the subsidy in a way that will not negatively affect those who are at the bottom of the totem pole.
Is it possible to do that? I've
Yes,
heard
it
that
is
argument
possible.
also, that you can tinker with it in such a way
I
that
think it is
the
possible.
poor will not be affected because they are the targets. They are the ones you keep in mind when you are doing such an exercise.
Yes, I think it is possible. But even before I perhaps propound my own idea of how that can be done, because I know in other jurisdictions these types of best practices are there that we can take advantage of and then learn from. We must look at the totality of the factors that influence the availability, lack thereof, and even the pricing of fuel in this country.
All right.
We cannot overlook the issue of smuggling. If you look at the West African
The issue of
sub-region,
smuggling, that's been with us since Adam.
well, that doesn't mean that
anytime
we should
the
not,
petroleum debate comes up,
that doesn't mean that we shouldn't
bring
do
that
something
issue
about
as if
it.
it is new.
That doesn't mean that we shouldn't look at it, and that doesn't mean that if it is a contributory factor, we should not put in place a mechanism to arrest it. By and large, if you
If
look
you
at the
set
West,
up a company and you put a CEO in it, and annually he comes to tell you that I have this problem, annually he comes to report to you that problem, what will you do? You
but
sack
that is
him,
a
won't you?
collective failure of our state, and this is something that cannot be blamed on one political party or the other. Because even if you look at the figure that you quoted, the fact that government owes $400 million, government is a continuum, and so why should that even be the case? Why should government owe $400 million? That
In
in
terms
itself
of
is
electricity.
an issue. Exactly, that in itself is an issue. But in any case, I think my particular position is that I think it is about time that we take a critical look at this issue, and I believe that we are actually going to benefit by removing the subsidy rather than maintaining it. If you look at the analysis made so far, and you think about the fact that we are going to be losing in the range of 2.4 million this year alone, 2013, you can only dream about what that can do in terms of improving
It's
the conditions
2.4
of
billion
the people.
Ghana cedis, not
Yes.
million, billion.
Billion. Million or
It's
billion.
supposed to be billion Ghana cedis, not million.
Does that mean the old city or the current city?
Ghana
This
cedis.
is a new
Is a new city. So that's a lot of money.
Yes.
It is huge. Now think about what we can do with this pot of money in terms of even working on the fiscal infrastructure, introducing public transportation, efficient transportation that will reduce the demand for fuel, particularly by the upper and middle class. How many people in this country own vehicles?
The
How many
poor,
people
the poor
in
you
this
are
country
targeting,
own
I'm sure we'll
vehicles?
come to address that. The poor you are targeting must first feed before they will think about transport.
Yes, they must first feed. But the
If you
truth is that
remove it to go and build roads, they won't eat roads. I've heard politicians
but
say
the
that.
roads would make
say
it
that in this
easier for
country.
them to get to and from where they want to go, go to their farms, collect their produce, and then sell them. The roads would make it easier for us to have affordable, standardized public transport, where some of us who drive Hammers would now see the need to park our Hammers and then take public transport.
What's the guarantee in the first place that that money would go into the roads?
Those
that
are the
you're talking
issues
about?
that we have
talk
to think about.
Political
And
corruption in the country.
Yes, we have issues. Does that mean that we should play the ostrich and continue subsidizing fuel when we know that the collateral benefit is not actually getting to the very population that we seek to help by having these subsidies? Why can't we have a system in place that will clearly demarcate and identify and say that, okay, for all owners of public transport or the public transport system, you have a much more subsidized rate, which will be lower than the market rate that we are going to allow the market forces themselves to determine. I think that would be a very good start. But to say that we should just let it be the way it is, when we know how the maintenance of this type of subsidy is going to negatively impact our economy and our growth, certainly it's not nationalistic. And I want to say that, look, both parties which are dominant in this country have all had the chance to serve. They have all experienced the problem. I think we have come to a stage where we must begin to hold the bull by the horn and do what is right, what is in the interest of the nation, rather than this partisanship. When it's the NDC, then the NPP wants to play the good guy, and when it's the NPP, then the NDC wants to play the good guy. This is what has gotten us where we are. And people like myself and other well-meaning Ghanaians, we believe that the time has come for a serious action to be taken in the national interest, devoid of the political interest and the political gimmickry, so to speak. So if you want my short answer, I really believe that the time has come for us to remove the fuel subsidies.
And as you said earlier, we need to go for that national debate.
Yes, we do.
All right.
This
Thank
is
you.
not, it is not your choice, it's not my choice, it's not Nana Akome's choice.
All right. Okay. Now, Nana, I want to first of all know what you also think about this issue and what will reflect the NPP's, viewpoint on fuel subsidies. But first of all, I want to bring to your attention that the German Development Organization has accused Ghana of being a bad child, in quote, a bad child in the sub-region on petroleum pricing.
Why is that?
Because we have cheap prices, our neighbors can afford to come in and take them away. So we need to remove the subsidies.
Well, Samson, let me say good morning to your listeners and your viewers. I always find it difficult to imagine these programs on television.
Which means you should be careful with tricks.
No, and also apologize, my voice is not too good. The issue that you mentioned, Bevlolate, the National Security Coordinator, he says they're smuggling. But you said they've always been smuggling. So why is the National Security Coordinator worried about smuggling of petrol this week? Then you had appointments committee nominees who were being vetted. You had them advocating for removal of subsidies and increase in the price of petrol. You had people talking about it, advocating for the increase in the price of petrol on the floor of Parliament. And now the National Security Coordinator. So you could see an orchestration by various actors in the ruling government to prepare the ground for an increase. Otherwise, why is the National Security Coordinator all of a sudden coming out and telling us about smuggling and so on?
That all governments do. You test the public's reaction. You all do.
What the public needs is transparency. That's all. There's a huge doubt out there that there's any subsidy. And I've heard senior journalists, senior editors make cogent arguments that where is the subsidy? So first, you need to demonstrate that there is a subsidy. Then you've made a clear case.
The acting chief executive of the NPA says, Alex Mood, says that, yes, there is subsidy, just that government doesn't pay. And that is why we are where we are.
So I'm saying that demonstrate it. The public debate, the orchestration should be about showing Ghanaians very clearly that there is a subsidy and that subsidy has to be plugged. But nobody has demonstrated, apart from statements being made, nobody seems to be keen on demonstrating where the subsidy is and how the subsidy came about. If you do that and you're able to do it convincingly, you would get understanding from the Ghanaian public. The last time the price of petrol went up, I think about 1.5 years ago or so, the price of the oil was about $80 a barrel. Since then, today it's about $118 a barrel, from 80 to about 118 since the last increment. The price of the dollar, which is the exchange rate, has gone up by over 50% in that same period. So what is fueling the shortfall? If it's the price of the dollar, this is the exchange rate, that is a direct effect of the government's management of the macroeconomy. So if the cedi has fallen by over 50% in that period, and that is going to necessitate an increase in the price of petrol, because you need to buy the dollar to go and buy the oil. The ordinary taxi driver, what has he got to do with the government's inability to stabilize the cedi? Why is he going to be made to pay for that? We're still talking about subsidies and the need to remove them. The product as we have it, the petrol, the gallon of petrol, Samson, as we speak, there are so many taxes on the product. There is the toll levy. There is the road fund tax. There is the social mitigation levy tax on it. There's excise duty on it. There's energy levy on it. There's exploration levy on it. There's cross-subsidy levy on it. Now, a product that has so many different taxes, it is difficult to convince anybody that it is at the same time being subsidized. So you need to come out clearly to let us know. If you went to our recent past, in 2008, there was another government. The price of petrol, oil, went up to $145 a barrel. In 2008, in April 2008, it got to 118, moved to 125, moved to 140, moved to 145 over a 3-month period, 4-month period. At that time, the price of the gallon of petrol was 5 cedis 30 pesos. When oil was 118, 125, 140, 145, petrol was being sold at 5 cedis 30 pesos. Today, oil is being sold at 118. We are buying it, petrol, at 7 cedis 90 pesos. So where is the subsidy? When it was $145 a barrel, we were selling it at 5 cedis 30 pesos.
But back to this issue, when you were in government, you remember a few times that you told us about the subsidies. You are asking of the government now to tell us where the subsidy is. Do you remember you taking us through any such mathematics?
They asked us to demonstrate where the subsidy was. So we're saying that also just demonstrate it. Because they made political capital out of it. We told them that we had frozen the price at 120 and that we're not selling it at 145. So when it came down, the government was reluctant to bring the price. When the price of oil came down, the government was reluctant because he said we had incurred so much cost because we couldn't recover the full amount. They said, no, you have to reduce it drastically. You remember, election year. So there is a difficulty, a contextual difficulty. I'm not saying there's no subsidy. Maybe there is. I'm not saying somebody is lying to Ghanaians. But I'm saying that because of the context, you need to demonstrate the subsidy. And I've given you that in 2008, when the price went more than 120, went up to 145, it was being sold at 5 cedis 30 pesos. Today, you are selling it at 7 cedis 90 when the price is 118, not 145. So maybe there's inflation and all of that. But you need to demonstrate clearly. Also, we have been told earlier on, 2-3 years ago, that the government was engaged in a hedging policy, which is an insurance. Millions of dollars were spent for us to be able to do that insurance. So what has happened to the hedging policy? Is it still working? If it's still working, why is there going to be all these calls for increments? There was also what we call the ex-refinery differential, which you remember, where the prices were low and the government would not reduce the price. The price of oil had fallen, and the government would not reduce the price of petrol. Rather, it puts 1 cedi on each gallon. People went to court and said that 1 cedi was illegal. It was a tax. And the courts actually ordered that 1 cedi should be taken off and refunded. They refused.
The non-removal that you spoke about earlier, was it not a political decision? Was it really a decision that was looking realistically at the situation and projecting into the future where we have come now?
Which non-removal?
When
The 1 cedi?
Yes.
Yeah, so if you've taken 1 cedi off a gallon for that period, that money should be available to cushion Ghanaians. Also, you have a hedging policy. I'm trying to paint the context that requires that a subsidy is demonstrated in the light of this hedging, in the light of the ex-refinery differential, and all of that. I'm just trying to paint the context for you.
Okay.
Now, we also talked about, when you are dealing with Dr. Apang, you talked about the credibility. What is the money going to be used for? And there's a great point there that the government has to deal with.
Okay, I'll return to you. We'll do that.
Let me just round up.
You know, I want you to keep that thought, and I'll return to you. No, because I'm dealing with time. And,
but let me just round up.
And I want to apportion the time fairly.
Let me just round up.
Just hold on. Sorry.
Just
hold on. I'll return to you. Now, Ras Mubarak, I'm sure you have also been following all of this debate. At a point, you would feel that when Alex Moore told the Super Morning Show that, look, the point is that government just doesn't pay the subsidy. And that's why we are where we are. If government had paid it, we wouldn't be where we are. What does that reflect on the governance of the NDC?
Well, first of all, you can hardly not follow the debate on, fuel subsidy and fuel price increases because, one way or the other, it has bearing on the lives of everybody, of politicians, of farmers, fisherfolk, teachers, and so on and so forth. And it is interesting the way the debate is going, looking at the diverse positions that have been expounded, one, by experts, two, by political players. And, listening to Nana Komie's extrapolation, clearly we have a problem as a country. And the problem is that we have for a very long time enjoyed playing politics with the issue of fuel. I mean, fuel price increases or hikes under any government is so uncomfortable, unpopular. I mean, governments, whether the MPP, the NDC, it's made governments very unpopular. I mean, we had situations with President Rawlings when, people described him as very insensitive and so on and so forth, went on demonstrations. It happened under President Kufuor. It's happened under President Mills. And it may, prices of fuel may also go up under President Mahama. The reality is that in all probability, no government is going to be able to run its full course, its full tenure, without, fuel increment based on the forces that are at play.
Listen to Fifi Kwete, the Minister of State designate for the presidency in charge of financial and allied institutions. And when he was being vetted and when the issue came up, he said that between 2008 and 2012, fuel prices in the country hardly went up because the political decision makers thought it would be suicidal to raise the price of the product in an election year.
Well, I mean, we are a social democratic party. The NDC has made consistent efforts at keeping prices low so as to cushion ordinary men and women of Ghana. And in so doing, it may have hurt us in many
Do you get the import of that comment?
I absolutely get the import.
2008 and 2012.
Yeah.
Election years. So the public listening and watching us now gets an impression that, look, you don't really mean well for us. All you are interested in, because it is political season, you want to keep your votes.
Absolutely.
So you don't do it.
Absolutely.
Now you've been voted for.
Absolutely.
You are bringing the issue up, testing their pulse.
No
so
one
that
is,
eventually you will say, pay for it.
No one is testing any polls. The president has not said he's going to increase fuel. But, I mean, in reality, and listening to the experts, including people from the opposition, fuel prices one way or the other would have to go up, because government would have to consider increasing fuel prices because it needs money to pay wages and salaries. I mean, this is the one thing on our budget that is giving government a lot of headache. Salaries and wages of Ghanaian workers is the most single important item on the budget. And looking at the fact that everyone is clamoring for more wages and salaries. Pharmacists are on strike, doctors are
have
threatened to go on strike, doctors are clamoring, teachers.
They have suspended their strike.
And I'm sure if, many of our friends, Nana Komia here, was still in the civil service, I'm sure he would also have made a claim for an increase in salary. These things are real, and these things are things that make government very uncomfortable. Now, what government needs to do in circumstances like this is to look at the most effective way of raising resources to meet, demands for wages and salaries, because we have seen instances, especially in a country like Greece.
You talk about alternative sources.
Hold on,
have you heard people say, shut up, we've got oil, use the oil money and pay for it?
But the oil is not enough. But the point I'm making is that when you are unable to pay wages and salaries, you get a situation like it happened in Greece, where families are committing suicide because they can't even feed their families, where people both in opposition and in government and just about everybody is on the street crying for more. One of the main planks of our manifesto was to work for the people of Ghana and to create stability and development. And if we are going to be able to create stability and development, we should be in a position, we should be able to do things that would not lead people into strife, that would not lead people into committing suicide. So government is committed to making sure that the men and women who are in the public services, the teachers, the nurses and doctors, are getting paid at the end of the day. And to be able to pay them so that they don't go on strike for Ghanaians to die, government would have to look for resources somewhere. And clearly, anyone would tell you that one of the surest ways of ensuring that you get funds is through fuel price taxation or through fuel price increases.
Okay, so kindly hold on for me briefly. I have on the line the Honorable Seth Tepe. He is the Finance Minister. Good morning and thank you for joining us on Newsfile.
Good morning and good morning to your listeners and to my colleagues at the studio.
Okay, I do not know your specific intervention, but if I could put this very first question to you. Nana Kumir is asking, where is the subsidy really?
They should demonstrate it.
Well, I think to answer that question, we have to go to the pricing formula that has been used to determine the subsidy in quotes since the 1980s. It is not a new formula. The pricing formula includes an excise, and most subsidies are based on either tax-inclusive or tax-exclusive pricing. Today, if we went to buy materials for school uniforms, for example, and sold it and provided it by way of subsidy, some of those materials are bought on the market. And they include, if they are imported, import duties, they include excise, they include not excise, VAT and other taxes. So when you talk about providing school uniforms, for example, to students, it does not mean that you have removed all the taxes. Where government has the wherewithal, government could remove those taxes. So right from the days of the formula, there has always been an excise. And remember, the purpose of an excise is also punitive. Petroleum is an environmental, has an environmental destructive element to it. And so petroleum is one of the products, like cigarette, that attracts excise. So there is here, therefore, two government policies at play. Now, when the price is determined, which includes the excise, we then add the margins, and that is what determines the market price. So the market price is tax inclusive. Now, it is at that point that you decide whether you pass it all on, to the consumer or not. And so if you abate that price, you would have a subsidy element at market value as a tax-inclusive market value. So yes, you do have that contradiction which we have been debating over so many years, that on the one hand there is a tax element and on the other hand there is a subsidy. Those who argue that there is no subsidy take the view that you cannot have the two things because the opposite of a tax is subsidy. Therefore, practical purposes and for policy objectives, when you are satisfying multiple objectives, these things happen. And I just cited the example of school uniform or even school feeding. The rice that may be provided may have come including import duty, and unless you put a measure in place to remove it, your subsidy or the provision of free, for that matter, school uniforms would include an element of tax. Indeed, this tax question goes into even our calculation of the national income. So indirect taxes are often added or excluded. So this, I just want to offer that. Secondly, the pricing formula has a cross subsidy. So for the current debate, we are talking about a subsidy policy which hasn't gone away. The issue at stake is that, and when I talk about a cross subsidy, what I mean is that when you take kerosene or LPG and others, they attract a lower price, suboptimal price than super, diesel and other products. And that is the essence of the targeting. It is considered that kerosene, for example, goes to the low income in relation to transportation.
Yeah, Alex Moss has really explained that part of it. But yes. Sorry that I may be sounding too simplistic and maybe an ignoramus of on the issue. But can you explain? Is the taxpayers' money that you will use to do the subsidy? Is that correct?
What? No, it's not an ignorant question at all.
Okay.
So
if let me complete the question. If that is so, if that is so, my grandmother who is in the village is saying, okay, if they pay taxes and all, and you want to increase, and they are saying, we are the ones who pay the taxes. We don't want you to, remove the subsidy. We will pay the taxes for you to take care of it anyway. What is government's problem?
Well, government's problem is that, take the excise which I just spoke about. That excise has gone into the consolidated fund. And that excise duty or revenue, as Ras was explaining, is the one that is being used to pay salaries. It is the one that is being used to pay for the free textbooks, school uniform feeding. It is the one that is being used to maintain facilities. And it is the same amount that is being used to construct roads and other things. So here we are entering into a mix of government policies whereby all the taxes that are collected, including the excise duty that is on a reference now, has become fungible. So if you argue that, fine, I want to pay, and therefore continue paying the subsidy, then what you are also saying or retaining, what you are also saying is that something must give. Because the price is suboptimal, and you must therefore, reduce a certain expenditure in order that you retain, the subsidy at the levels, at the unadjusted level since February last year.
Okay.
This is a simple issue, and this is why in the budget, as Honorable Akumia would bear with me, we have a line, for the subsidy. And so if you say retain it at 100, let's say just for argument's sake, retain it at 100 million, Ghana cedis, it is based on a certain crude price. That estimate is based on a certain crude price. It's based on a certain exchange rate. It's based on the margins which I've been explaining, and it is based on the excise. So if the prices change, the exchange rate change, and all those factors change, and you do not adjust it, then it means that you would need more than 100 million, to make up. And this is the question.
Okay.
It isn't, for example, that you are removing, the subsidy on kerosene, which is, or LPG, which is built in the cross subsidy. No, you are only saying that developments have been different since February last year, and we are at the point where you have to make the adjustments.
Okay.
And if I may explain also, last year in April there was a meeting, I think it was even in the news, televised, where His Excellency met the late president as well as the current president, met the stakeholders, and it was decided that government will start incremental increases every month or every 2 weeks, rather than wait for 6 months or 1 year before making hefty changes. Incidentally, before, election year and all those arguments, notwithstanding, what happened was that by May, a month after that, when the policy was to have started in around June, was when the cedi started depreciating very fast. And Bank of Ghana had to introduce those measures. I think we all debated those measures. So the real question from the economic side was whether it was prudent to introduce a second shock into the economy, because we had adjusted interest rates. We had also taken certain measures on foreign exchange. I think we debated all this.
Yes, we did. But Honorable Tepe...
excuse me if I may just finish.
Okay,
so
briefly.
It took until October, November, you agree with me, before the cedi stabilized. The government even came and attacked that. He said it would stabilize around August. So that was one critical factor where the wide adjustments couldn't be done last year. I am not here to deny completely that there may not have been some political considerations. I'm saying that the dominant economic question was whether, you will subject the economy to two major shocks.
All right. It is being projected that about 2.4 billion Ghana cedis will be needed this year to make up for this, to cover the subsidy. Now, the question I'm asking is, does government have any grand plan to direct the subsidy into if it is removed?
Oh, of course, yes. I just mentioned a large number of other subsidies, that exist, which we often don't, debate. For example, when it comes to education, I did mention school uniforms, books, tuition, feeding, some of which are free, some of which are at low prices. We have policies like cheap compound, LEAP, and others, some of which, to give due credit, was started by the previous administration as part of the MDG, and which we are sustaining. Even when it comes to SMEs, we have the smallholder schemes. We have agriculture, fertilizer inputs, and whatever, and other inputs which benefit farmers. So we do have other properly targeted. I think the issue also is about targeting. Properly targeted, subsidy and expenditure programs, which target the population, the low-income population we are talking about.
The question really is there a deliberate program for which the money will be directed into if the subsidy was removed? Deliberate.
Yes, I'm giving you examples. I'm giving you examples of
where it may be put into.
Excuse me?
You are giving me examples of where it may go into.
Exactly, of expenditure programs that are in the budget and have been on the budget. And I just said, to give due credit, some of them were introduced in the previous administration.
Okay.
And they are better targeted. There was a time when, petroleum was the main means of targeting. Now we have diversified, the targeting of government expenditure to help low-income people.
I was asking that question because there are some who would want government, for example, to publish in very clear terms what programs it will use the money for. The alternative, you use the money for, so that everybody can watch and monitor and say we have a good use for the money.
We did. Maybe we can improve, the reporting, and the transparency. That if you go to last year's budget, all the programs that I mentioned were actually put in a section, and even debated in Parliament. We call them the social intervention programs.
I see.
So we have become more and more transparent with this. We also know about the NDG goals, including maternal health care and the rest. And these are also monitored and debated. Yes, so we are becoming more and more transparent.
My very final question to you, and briefly, how do you feel hearing that about 40% of all fuel is used up by government ministries, departments, and agencies when we are doing this debate?
It brings a number of points. Maybe I'll mention just in the interest of time, 2 or 3. One, is the expenditure justified or not? Government machinery must run. But if it is justified, is it excessive or is there waste? And this is where measures like auditing and the rest have to come in. And then it even begs the question, therefore, that part of the subsidy, because of targeting, inevitably go to government, programs. So I think we can look at the question, from a broad perspective.
But you are aware that the Ghanaian voter is also aware that some of these V8s that are being driven all over, the fuel that they take are not being really used for official purposes.
Fair point. I mean, this has been made. This point has been made, and I'm saying that this is a matter of compliance. It's a matter of discipline, and it's a matter of, we being conscious that the taxpayer, those of us in the public service, they're conscious. You may need a cross-country probably to travel for a function outside, the city. But you may not necessarily need it to travel to go to work, particularly if you have another vehicle. Or we can be modest in what we do. But I'm saying that, yes, this is, a separate question.
Yes.
That needs to be addressed, properly. We are talking here about, waste. We are talking about misallocation and other things.
Exactly. So, Mr. Minister, so rudely put, the question will be, why should the taxpayer pay for your wastage? If you can't assure them, double assure them that you will ensure that the purpose for which these are supposed to be used will be properly used.
Every government has in place mechanisms for checking waste, including auditing, including disciplinary measures. So I would say, with all due respect, and not saying the question is irrelevant, that what we have to do is to enhance those policies. But to the extent that fuel will be required to run government machinery, we cannot also, as our proverb says, throw, the baby away, with the, what is the expression, with the bad water.
All right. Thank you very much, Minister for Finance, Seth Tekpe.
You're most welcome.
Great. All right. Now, you were making the point.
Yes,
I'm sure that after listening to him, certainly
he's provided a lot of clarity on the debate, and the Right Honourable Minister's intervention is quite apt. Some of the things I would just have to add a few things, because you were asking a question about what the Honourable Fifi Kwete said in Parliament. Now, the fact is that there's absolutely no doubt that when fuel prices go up or when subsidies are removed, it is painful for everybody. I mean, especially the working class. And usually the best way to address some of these difficulties that ordinary people would face would be to postpone such increases. And that's exactly what the NDC has done over the last five years or so. The NDC under the Mills Mahama administration, have been very sensitive, and consistent in our efforts at protecting the poor. So it's not necessarily about winning votes at an election. We had done it consistently to make sure that, we share the pain that ordinary men and women of our country go through, and for a fact, there's actually been more than 20 different occasions when the Mills Mahama administration, that is, between 2009 and 2012, had to postpone fuel increases simply because we feel the pain of ordinary men and women of our country. Now, we are at a point where we are faced with enormous challenges, challenges that make removal of subsidy laudable, challenges that make, fuel price increases, better for our country, because we have a deficit. There's a huge hole in our budget. We are faced with challenges from the implementation of the single spine salary structure. And as I mentioned earlier, don't forget that everyone is clamoring for more. And if workers, government workers are asking for better conditions of service, how are we going to be able to meet all of these challenges.
Okay.
Obviously, we would have to, find resources somewhere and be able to make sure that they feel all right and well taken care of.
I'll move on to Emmanuel Asigiri, but you hold on for me briefly. I'm also joined on the line by Alex Mould. He is the CEO of the National Petroleum Authority. Thank you very much, Mr. Alex Mould, for joining us on Newsfile.
Yes, good morning. How are you all doing?
I'm good. I hope you're also doing fine.
Yeah, I'm doing great.
Thank God. So I understand that you have a direct intervention to one of the issues that came up. What exactly will it be?
Well, I think it's about what actually are we supposed to be paying for, the price of the fuel. Currently, on Super, we're paying 170 pesos, 70.8 pesos. Full cost recovery of Super is 221.73 pesos. Okay? That would actually mean that there should be about a 30% increase in the price of petrol, Super. The actual taxes on that amount is about 10%. This is the total taxes is about 21.93 pesos. And this includes the toll debt recovery levy and every other levy that goes to government. If you take that 21.93 pesos out of the 221.73 pesos, which is the full cost, you get something close to 200 Ghana cedis, 200 pesos per liter. The current price at the pump is 170.8. That means that there is, if we had to pay the full price without even the taxes, taking the taxes out, government will still have to come up with about 30 pesos to the supplier. So for me, the question that's asked is government actually subsidizing, or is it using the taxes we get from petrol to do that?
And what's your answer to that?
Well, that's the answer I've given you. The answer is that government is subsidized because we are paying 117. The full price is 221, which the supplier is getting, plus all the people in the distribution chain. And then government, out of that 221, government is getting 21 pesos. So if you take the 21 pesos government is getting as taxes from it, then, we should give the supplier 200 Ghana pesos. But we're giving him 170. So government has to cough up another 30 pesos for Super to give to the supplier. And that is what we call the subsidy. So this taxes include excise duty, the road fund, the cross subsidy, which actually is a zero sum, the toll debt recovery levy, every single thing there, the government gets 21 pesos.
Okay. Can I ask?
On kerosene, government doesn't get a penny on kerosene. Government actually gives it's a negative tax of 3.66 pesos. The full cost of kerosene is 217 pesos. We are paying at the pump 91 pesos. Government doesn't get anything. Actually, government pays at 3.66 pesos. So if you look at 91 pesos and the full cost of 217 pesos, then we're talking about something close to 126 pesos, which government is subsidizing for every liter of kerosene. I also heard some information about 40% of the use of all the fuel we consume in this country for government. That's absurd, and I don't think there's any basis for that calculation. I don't think that is that high. We consume something close to just over 4 billion liters of fuel. This is all fuels in the country, including LPG. And I think that is, if we're talking about 40% of that, we're talking something close to 1.5, 1.6 billion liters of fuel. And this definitely is not the amount. The police, army, who consume majority of what is consumed by government, is a mere fraction of that.
I see.
I think we should do some more analysis and get the right information so that we can present it to
Great. So
people.
it's good we have you on the line now. But tell me this: can you tell us, and I'm sure you may know, how much government got by way of tax revenue from petroleum last year?
Okay, I mean, we don't know the exact number, but we do the calculations based on the
No,
liters
but
that are sold.
Mr. Mold, you should know.
No, I'm coming to give you the number. I'm just coming to give you, all I'm saying that the authority that will give you the right number is SEPS. Based on our calculations, NPA, we are talking about government getting something close to 260 million Ghana cedis. And also, government getting from the third debt recovery levy something close to 260 million Ghana cedis. It's going to be plus and minus because we're still reviewing the last month's numbers with SEPS and also with the oil marketing companies. So it is a very close approximation. It wouldn't be more than 10 or 15% plus or minus. But this is the amount government, based on the liters sold and based on the margins the government is supposed to collect.
Okay.
Total taxes, which excludes the third debt recovery levy, we're talking about 260 million Ghana cedis. When you add the third debt recovery levy, it comes to something close to 520, 530 million Ghana cedis. This is what, based on our calculation.
I see. Perhaps very, very finally, before what you wanted to say to wrap up, would you want to advise government, for example, to consider removing the petroleum exploration levy, since we understand the GMPC is generating sufficient inflows?
I'm sorry, but that is totally out of the remit of NPA.
No, I'm asking your advice.
We do not advise government what they should do with subsidies or what they should do with government revenue, whether they should put it on petrol or not. What we advise them is what the full cost recovery should be and how much the supplier would need to continuously bring fuel into the country. Those are policy issues which they have other ministries and other policy advisors to advise them on.
I see. We're very grateful for your time, Alex Mold.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Alex Mold is the CEO of the NPA. Very enlightening, interventions by the minister and Alex Mold. Ima, I don't know what you want to say moving up forward.
Thank you very much, Samson. Let me also take the opportunity to say good morning to viewers and listeners of this noble program.
It's your first time on the show?
It's my first time on the show. Having said that, coming to the question you've put to me, for me, I am at a loss with the various interventions that have come from the minister and the chief executive of the National Petroleum Authority. I think that just when you had given Dr. Apak the floor to make his submission, you made a statement which was a quote, coming from Mr. Alex Mold, and you stated that he said on, the Super Morning Show.
I paraphrased him anyway.
Well, but not the quote.
Just go ahead.
Well, that government does not just pay subsidies. And listening to him now, if what you indicated is what is to go by, I find it quite interesting. That's why I'm saying I'm at a loss.
Okay.
But and other statements that have come, not just on this platform, but listening to the debates that has been going on with regards to the issue of this subsidy, the arguments that are being put out there. Dr. Apak made the submission, and in the minister's submission, he did recount some of these ones that I'm just, alluding to him. For instance, talking about when the subsidies are taken off, money's channeled into roads and all that. Nana Kumia indicated the tax component that is making, the price of fuel at the pumps go high. One of the taxes in there that I am aware of is about the road fund, which is about 7% or so. I mean, today we are told that we need to take some of these things, take the subsidy off so we can get money and put into the roads area. As we speak, in the last 3 years or more, the road fund has been in arrears. Contractors who have been given road contracts by government cannot be paid. Then you ask yourself, what are we talking about here? That if we say we want to do these things to mitigate or help the poor farmer who finds himself at Denugu, the poor farmer at Pasa, young farmer at Pasa would benefit from subsidies being taken and then channeled into road construction. The question I ask myself is, what is happening to the current situation where a component has been put in there as tax to be used for some of these areas.
You don't find the issue you are raising rather supporting the need for the removal of the subsidy?
No, I don't. Because if we are talking about putting the subsidy in some of these areas, we've already put what it is. We're not talking about the tax component. We are talking about what it is. I mean, the claims that government is paying something in there to help the price of fuel at a particular level. You see, Samson Nana made a brilliant point when he talked about the issue with regards to what the National Security Coordinator and the Minister of Information and Media Relations have put out there in the public domain, indicating that fuel smuggling and all the debates in terms of those who have gone for vetting and the things that are coming up, it is just to prepare the minds for fuel increase. If you take fuel smuggling, which you said has been with us for ages, we agree. Listening to, and I'm sad that he is not here, because I was going to put some of these things directly to him, because he represents an area where I'm going to use as an example, Boko. When we talk about fuel smuggling, he indicated in a submission he made on one of the networks this week, when this issue of the statement he issued came up. And he stated that for this reason, district assemblies, metropolitan authorities, and then municipal assemblies are not supposed to be giving permits to people who want to site filling stations close to our borders, talking about the issue of smuggling. Something as we speak, you come from the Upper East, and then Dr. Park comes from the Upper East as well, and you would be well versed with what I'm going to talk about. If you take...
I haven't been there recently, so let me pose that disclaimer.
I'm just talking of
all right, go on.
An area where you probably would be aware of. If you take the distance between Navrongo and Paga, which is just about 6 miles, we have 14 filling stations. And ask when most of these filling stations were put in place. In the last 2-3 years, if you take a distance between Misiga and then Kulgungu, which is just about 10 miles, again you have 8 filling stations. Again, ask when all these filling stations were put up.
These are not at border points.
They are.
You know, the first that you mentioned, is it from Bolga to Navrongo?
No. I said Navrongo to Paga.
To Paga.
6 miles.
I see.
And you're just talking about just the border, side.
No,
Kulgungu.
clearly, if
So, but not about the issue of smuggling is an issue.
No, I'm coming
if the minister is saying that we need to watch these things, you should be applauding
please, can I make my point?
Excoriating.
Can I make my point?
If you need applause and then you're doing something that makes it counterproductive.
No, you would get to understand it and then appreciate what I'm putting out there. If you take a distance again between Misiga and then Widana, which is another border point, you have 5 filling stations there. The last time I checked, when I was DC of Garut and Pani, there wasn't any filling station on that road between Misiga and Widana. He didn't get the point I was getting.
Was that
the
good
point
for the
I'm
people?
getting into
Was that
is
good
this.
for the people when you didn't have any filling station, where now you say you have how many of them?
Samson, I'm coming there and I'll deal with all these issues. The point I'm raising here is this. This is the minister telling us that it is a policy of government not to allow filling stations to be sited at these places. That is where I'm coming in. If we have sat down and allowed these things to happen, and then today we are beset with the problem of smuggling of fuel, our fuel outside, who do we want to blame? Because most of these things were done under the watch of the NDC government. That is why I have indicated, if you take the situation between Misiga and Kulgungu, we used to have only 2 filling stations
to avoid,
when NPP
to avoid smuggling out of the borders. You deny people the luxury
I am coming there.
that they should have.
Coming there.
The comfort, the little comfort of having a fuel station close by you.
Listen, I come from these areas and I know what I'm talking about. That's why I'm not mentioning areas that I'm not aware of. If you take the situation in terms of vehicular presence or motor or whatever, the need for using fuel in these areas, I don't see what we have between or the catchment area under Widana or Kulgungu that warrants we having 5 filling stations between Misiga and Widana, between Misiga and Kulgungu. I cannot see what should make us have the number
of filling stations. Be careful, because I suspect a press statement right after you are done with this program. From them.
We are talking about the situation. In spite of even
the owners of those filling
stations. In spite of
you may be jumping the gun.
I am not talking about.
You seem to be suggesting
there
are those may have come up as a result of
connivance or conspiracy by the current government.
The filling stations I cited there, and smuggling is taking place at the full glare of citizens. I have said
So we
that.
are
I am coming.
which is an issue.
That is the point. What is my point? My point is this. Today, we are being told that is what is making us look at this issue of taking away subsidies, because fuel that is at a cheaper price in Ghana is smuggled out there.
It's a factor that you can't ignore.
Hold on, I'm saying that the minister goes ahead to indicate that there is a policy in place. Please, Ras, please, let me make my point.
The minister is not here.
Yes,
I haven't heard him say these things.
I've also not heard him.
To attribute statements to the minister without giving us the full facts. Where did he say these things?
Honorable Muhammad Yarga said this on Oman FM this week. I am quoting and giving you where he said that. I listened to him, and I think that's it.
One second. You see, forget about what the minister said. Smuggling is a big issue. The National Security Coordinator is complaining.
Now, actually, there is now Operation Hunters.
Yeah. Now, what Asigre is saying, that when you allow a plethora of filling stations to be established close to the borders,
and you say there's a policy
and then
to
you
stop
come and
that.
tell us that you are not going to check
That is the point I'm making.
That what is the vehicular density in those areas that you would allow 7, 8 filling stations within a 10 kilometer
Is that not a simplistic, lazy approach to think that because there will be smuggling, you don't put filling stations in these areas? Is it not a duty of the security to ensure that it's not smuggled?
Then we should not be the ones answering this question, because I am illustrating the point that the minister told us that there is a policy not to allow these things to happen.
Forget about the minister telling anybody. Let's take that away. Let's take that away. Exactly. Let's take that away and look at the issue generally in the manner Nana has situated.
We have a serious problem with smuggling. But I think that my brother Asigri here is trying to stretch it to suggest that perhaps there is some level of complicity. No. I think what we should be doing is to indict our entire nation as a society.
We have a problem
for the laziness and the lack of patriotic spirit that has become part of our being. If you posit the argument that way, I don't have a problem. But if you suggest that this only happened under the watch of this government, how do we truly know that all of these happened under the watch of the government? How do we know the owners of those filling stations?
I am not looking at the owners. I am looking at a situation where... No, I'm looking at a situation where a policy... No, I'm looking at a policy that is put in place, indicating that filling stations should not be... Because the issue is coming up now because smuggling has become a major issue with regards to what we are talking about. And I'm saying that when Nana spoke about, I thought that it is my turn to speak.
He's taking away that part of it. I have asked that we take away the part of the minister because he's certainly not here to.
No, even with the fact that filling stations are closer to the border. My point is that
he's a former DC. He's a former DC of the area.
Well, can you independently corroborate that? You can't. Can Nana do that? He can't. Can I do that? I can't. So on issues that...
So that because you can't...
so that because you can't,
when they are facts
on issues that cast slur on government's credibility...
Well, the point I'm making here is this.
Okay, let him finish. Finish in a minute because you've actually done more than your time.
Really?
Yes.
With all these interjections?
Don't worry.
This is interesting anyway.
Well, you gave the topic another twist.
No, what is the twist to this? Because we're talking about...
Stop responding and concentrate on finishing the point.
The point that we are talking about here is this. Government is beset with an issue where we cannot run away from. As we speak, the thermal oil refinery does not refine fuel.
It's not a problem for government alone. It's a problem for all Ghanaians.
Because we are importing crude
that is our
and
problem.
It is coming into this country with a tag, emergency. And that is, we are paying more for that crude. So we cannot sit here and think that it is just that we are faced with a situation where we have to... There are so many things that have led into some of these things. Why is our refinery not refining crude fuel, crude oil? Why is the refinery not refining crude oil? And the cargo that is brought in is tagged as emergency and we are paying more for that. I think that any of the technical people who is listening should call and tell me this is not true. And we will start naming companies that are bringing some of these products into the country and they are tagging them as emergency, and for that matter, we're paying more for. So where we are supposed to be doing the right things, we are not dealing with the issues in that sense. The minister talked about, it was Alex Mod who talked about the security taking the chunk of government's allocation when you ask that question. Again, we are told in the last 4 years that the amount they're supposed to be giving has been halved. So where do we come in with this type of a submission? You know, that the security services are the ones who are taking a chunk of that. I think that those who are running these areas should come again and tell us something more than we are getting. Nobody is sitting here and wanting to use this situation to do some politics. It affects all of us. I won't do anything with politics in this sense. It affects all of us. It affects my uncles, my relations, who are the poor farmers getting into the onion cultivation and all that. So I'm not going to sit here and use this for politics.
All right, let's try and finish on this discussion. Now, Dr. Park, do you sincerely think that government can bear the opportunity cost of removing fuel subsidies?
Well, the simple answer is yes. I think that
it affects every facet of the Ghanaian life.
The case can be made, and if the proper mechanisms are put in place to explain to the people and to allow them to understand the benefit that we are going to derive as a nation, I don't see why the people should not accept this. The truth is that we must move away from the use of fuel as a tool in our politics. And if we can do that, I don't see why the people would not accept this. You must understand that in doing so, the efforts that are in place to ensure that at least those at the bottom of the totem pole are still cushioned and that they are not overtly impacted negatively, is still going to be in place. I mean, kerosene, for example, we all know, those of us who, now that Asegri has mentioned that, those of us who come from the likes of Doninga and Fumbisi in the Upper East region, Mabusa people, who have said I should say hello to them. I didn't even know they were watching. You know, they hardly use petrol. They use mostly kerosene. So if we can have a system in place where public transport owners, or a system that would ensure that the bulk of the full cost recovery is actually targeted towards the middle and upper class, whereas those who engage in the public transport business, a special arrangement is made for them so that they don't pass on the full cost to the ordinary citizens who by and large use public transport systems, whether Trotro or Metromas, then I think that it is something that can be dealt with and the people would understand.
Nana, in the national interest, how do we manage this obvious bullet that is coming? We'll have to bite it anyway. Because that's how it happens. And I don't have to be a prophet to say it will happen. I'll take a quick break. When we return, we'll finish up on this subject in this manner. You're here on Newsfile on Joy 99.7 FM on radio and over a dozen of affiliate stations across the country. You're also watching us on the Joy News channel on Multi-TV. You may be watching also via the internet at www.multitvworld/streams or listening also at myjoyonline.com. A few of your messages, then I wrap up on this discussion. This one says, from Mohammed Chamsin in Yendi, he says, whether government removes subsidies or not, the value is the same. Every Ghanaian knows that the NDC government does not care about Ghanaians. Oswan, right? Samson, why is it that we are not told how much is collected as taxes from fuel sales annually? If subsidies are removed, then taxes should also go. Richmond Boama writes, what are our politicians doing to us? Are they taking us for a ride? Why is this almost becoming an annual ritual such that every new government that comes in faces this problem of power outages? They should come forthright with real solutions to the problem. Ata Imoro in Wellency writes, it is quite surprising that people who tout themselves as socialists would be thinking about removal of fuel subsidies at this time of economic hardships. Haruna writes, it is high time the government took a bold step on this fuel matter. let's stop the smuggling. Very important point there. And Stephen Kwesi Champon writes, Ghanaian politicians are all stomach politicians who scarcely care about the welfare of the masses. They hoodwink the poor Ghanaians to get their votes and use the positions and portfolios they get to enrich themselves and their families. These politicians do not buy petrol, live in free houses at the expense of the poor, and why should they care? This is a gargantuan oppression being visited on the people of Ghana. God help Ghana. Adomako Abraham writes from Nkoranza, I believe that the removal of fuel subsidies is a good idea by the government, but the question is, what decision is being taken to ensure that it does not bring economic hardship to Ghanaians, especially the aged and unemployed? We need to know the government plans for Ghanaians after the subsidies are removed. I'm sure you've been following, and you heard the finance minister also. The project will be to do it gradually, and so you feel the benefit and feel less of the impact. Kofi Oduro Asenso writes from Oxford in UK. He says that this is what the government must do to keep the fuel subsidy and help the poor. 1. All cars on the road, both private and commercial, should pay road tax, and that will bring in a lot of revenue considering the number of cars on our roads. Road tax, there's something there. Government should consider the use of leased cars for business instead of buying them. 3. MPs, regional directors of ministries, military officers below the rank of lieutenant colonel, and many others should not have official cars at their disposal, which only send their kids to school and their wives to the market at the expense of the taxpayer. In all, there is so much waste in the system that we need to take care of to keep the subsidy in place. Thank you very much. I'll return later to read some more of your messages. Nana, the question I was asking is, how should we manage the process? Because, I mean, it's an inevitable bullet that we have to bite.
Well, thank you, Samson. I would prefer, because when we are talking, we don't watch the time. You do. So when you believe that we've exhausted our time, just signal us so we round up.
All right.
This business of cutting me off, I don't like it at all.
All right, good. Yeah. Good.
Okay, now
check the time. You're doing 5 minutes.
Yeah, so just signal me, because I'm not looking at it. I'm looking at you.
Okay, go on.
The Ras Mubarak, he says that they want to do this increase because they have to pay wages. Please, don't go and sell that argument to Ghanaians. Now, when you say that you are a socialist government, you share the pain of Ghanaians. And so you are, a government that should get some kudos. But when it came to smuggling and inefficiencies, you say that was a problem for all Ghanaians. Ras, get away from those kinds of arguments. The finance minister, he didn't talk about the hedging. I wanted to ask him about what's happened to the hedging, because millions of dollars have been spent, and he's supposed to give us some protection. What has happened to it? The ex-refinery differential that the courts ordered that they were illegal impositions, it runs into millions of Ghana cedis. What has happened to it? But the finance minister talked about the exchange rate.
We've had explanations from Alex Mould about the due process being followed at this point, in consonance with the court's order.
But the differential is in place.
Now there's a name for it.
No, but it is in place.
There's a different name for
but
it. That's by my understanding.
That one CD is in place. What has happened to it? Every gallon that you and I buy, we pay 1 CD for this level. What has happened to it? You need explanations, because you want to convince people that they have to come along with you. The exchange rate that the finance minister, my good friend, mentioned, that is within the government's macroeconomic management. Now, if you can't manage the exchange rate and the CD fell like it did, then all of us should suffer for it. But you see, you talk about the credibility, that even if we pay all these new monies that they are coming to introduce, what is the guarantee And no satisfactory answer has been given. There is a huge gap between the public's perception of prudent management by government and the monies that they're asking for. Even with the petrol prices as they are, there's still excise duty on it. There is still the mitigation levy, social impact mitigation levy. That is what they say they are using to buy all these school uniforms and all kinds of stuff. It's still there. There's energy levy, but the street lights don't work. If you move away from these levies, look at the monies they pay to Wyoming without a single thought. Look, 3 days ago, I had Zoom Lion. They had built a 200,000 CD facility, toilet facility for the Ghana police in Accra Central, replacing a 30-year-old toilet. It had to take a private company, 200,000 cedis. And you have monies coming into government. What did they use it for? Look at the extravaganza during the elections. Cars being bought for student supporters. Volunteers for Mahama.
Those are allegations that have not been proven.
But you see,
they have been denied.
Doctor, you will be very dishonest. Hold on.
And now you have 2 minutes.
Anyway, but look at the interruptions.
Okay.
It will be very dishonest for anybody to tell us that they didn't see those cars on campus. Very, very dishonest for anybody. I saw them.
And you know that it was government that bought it for them. Nana, please, let's not do this to ourselves.
Oh, you didn't, but the perception. You didn't buy it. You didn't get one. You got a bigger one, I'm sure. Now, but even if you didn't see the cars, you saw the volunteers for Mahama who were being given public money so they can do their own campaign.
But which political party didn't organize the resource?
Please.
If we want to go into the debate over how people raise funds for campaign,
you've got just a minute to end.
Because we are talking of the use of public funds. Can't you understand this simple thing? We are talking about the use of public funds. You're asking us that we need more money. And we're looking at how you are using the money.
But then you don't have any evidence that shows that the public funds have been used unfairly by government.
Oh, but
you're making
volunteers for Mahama.
There was one instance.
That is one. Who knows about the others?
Okay, so the ones we don't know.
It is one too many.
I see.
That's the point. Now, you have this 6 ministers at the presidency. The whole point of having some of these institutions under the presidency is to bring a certain presidential weight. Now, if the president hasn't got time for them, why don't they go back to the ministries? You have to appoint 6 new ministers for them. What is the point?
You had about 7 ministers at the presidency
We didn't. But let me conclude. Let me conclude. You see, you talked about the management. That's the question that you had, the direct question. Tomorrow, or a few days after today, these people are going to slap about 20% increase on petrol.
Please.
You know what? You see, when you slap that level, it disorganizes the whole economy.
Yeah, the cascading effect.
The management. Yeah. If you know that you have to be close to the market price of oil, do it in such a way that it is regular.
Okay.
So that the increments are little and it doesn't disrupt the economy.
All right.
You sit down for 1 year, you are going to slap a 20 to 25% increment tomorrow, and you see the cascading effect on the whole economy.
Now, Mubarak, now, see, there are those who say that the tax component, the levies that you have, you have the social mitigation levy, you have the toll recovery, you have the road fund and all of these things. There are those who describe them as senseless levies that ought to be removed. Do you subscribe to that kind of position?
Well, absolutely not. I mean, every year the NDC administration, for instance, increase the tax exempt threshold, so that low-income earners are not taxed more, and that provides direct relief. Now, that answers your question. With regards to Nana Kwamya's propaganda, he wants guarantee. Well, the guarantee is that the people of Ghana chose my candidate, John Dramani Mahama, over his candidate. So he should be the last to be talking about.
But that doesn't mean
that
that you go to the market without an itinerary. You should be telling the people that this is where the savings will go.
He's talking about credibility. And I'm saying that the people of Ghana had a choice between.
We're discussing petrol.
Hold on. You
mentioned my name.
You mentioned my name in that relation.
You lost elections in Accra Does it mean you don't have credibility?
No, you've heard of.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Point
You
made.
are questioning the president's credibility in protecting the taxpayers'
Have we
purse.
mentioned the president here?
No, but I mean, he's the head of government. So
So
when
you
you say,
lost
so
elections.
when you say,
You
Now
lost
you've
elections.
made the point. Yeah.
so when you
What
say,
does this talk about your credibility?
when you say that, you know, we don't have guarantees, you don't know what we are doing with our money, the people of Ghana had a choice between two candidates or more, and they felt their money is best put with John Dramani Mahama, that John Dramani Mahama is a safer pair of hands. And that is why
they haven't
we
said,
couldn't question.
they haven't
Hold
said
on,
that he
hold
should
on.
go to the bank with a blank check. Please.
Absolutely.
We should know.
Now,
That's the question.
Nana also talks about the fact that we are a social democratic party, and we
No,
talk-
you said so, not me.
No, you mentioned a point in your
You
statement,
said
and you
so.
said we should. We're talking about removing subsidy on fuel. The point is that a social democratic party does not pursue a policy that benefits the rich. I mean, with all these subsidies on fuel, who benefits from that? It is the rich. The people who are targeted, people who are protected by all of these interventions don't get to benefit from it. So why must a social democratic party that is there to protect the interests of the working class, of the poorer people, end up protecting the rich? And that clearly answers his question. And my brother Ima also talks about the fact that we have allowed people to put up petrol stations, and that is causing smuggling. Again, that is a lame argument. Smuggling comes about because prices...
He's talking about putting
you
the
see,
fuel
hold on,
stations,
closer to
putting
the borders.
exactly.
And you say...
You are refusing to be educated, which we are told that you cannot side filling stations.
You say that is causing smuggling.
I didn't say so.
Oh.
I did not.
He said
I
that
was-
it facilitates it.
I did
somehow.
not,
point is
because
that
I was being told.
smuggling-
I heard the Minister of Information and
Again, that is
Media
important.
Relations.
But
You will have your turn
but
shortly.
The point is that we have smuggling because our price, the price that we pay for petrol, for diesel in Ghana, is cheaper than that of our neighbors. And so everyone finds it convenient to come into our country and do their thing. And we have people in our country.
Your borders are that
and we have
porous that you
people in our
don't check.
country
People just coming and
who
go.
are unpatriotic.
No, that's an indictment
Who
on
are
the country's
collaborating.
security.
Hold on,
and
hold on,
those who
hold
are
on.
paid to
Hold on.
watch.
What I think, and again, that actually dovetails into the debate over increasing fuel prices, so that we can be able to resource the border agencies to man our borders, so that people would not come in and steal our petrol, so that we can be able to pay security officers well, because we are talking about the wage bill, and our friends in opposition are refusing to accept the fact that without an increment in price like fuel, we have enormous difficulty in meeting our wage bill. And we don't want a situation where we would have strife in our country. I mean, we've seen what is done to countries like Greece. And as I explained earlier, in Greece, parents actually committed suicide because they were unable to meet the demands of running their homes, that people were hitting the streets. And we have a commitment. The president has a commitment to work for the people of Ghana. And that is why he has said that he's not going to do anything that will not bring about stability and development. So we need to make sure that our workers are paid promptly, and that means generating more resources to be able to pay them. We need to make sure that we are building and expanding infrastructure so that when farm produce are brought in from my village in Kumbungu, we would be able to transport them to where they ought to be.
Thank you. Thank you. Your time is up.
Thank
you. Your time is up.
Just one
we
quick
need to move
point.
on. We need to move on. I'm very sorry about that.
On subsidy, it's important that we explained to my constituents, the people in Aoshi or Odoko or Nana Komia's constituents, that what this debate is all about. Now, subsidy in layman's terms is, simply means a thing you buy for, say, 5 cedis, which is being sold for 3 cedis. You're virtually running at a loss.
Thank you.
And our country
I think
cannot
we
run this
can
in a very
stop at that
sustainable
point. Now, Ima had suggested the question of taxes and all of that and the need for the removal, which is the position that AFAG has also taken in calling on government to do something about it. Now, Alex Mo says that, look, even if these taxes, were removed, even if a government decided to forgo all of these taxes on petrol, we will still have to increase petrol to about 200 points. the point is, we should be looking at how to manage the obvious that is coming. What is your suggestion in that regard?
Well, I mean, like you rightly said, look, we are sitting here carrying out this debate. We have been told we should go into a national debate.
I meant to say 200 pesos.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we should go into a national debate on this issue of taking off the subsidy and all that. Like Nana said, I can assure you that with all these things that are going on, there is nothing that's going to change, because the policy is that prepare the minds of Ghanaians and they can accept this. And these things that they're doing is as a result of their own deeds, which is haunting them today. It is as a result of that. And I can assure you that in spite of what level we would go debating this matter, once government has already started going about it this way, we would have the situation come affect us. But again, like Nana said, it is going to come and derail the entire economy. It is going to come. For me, I can't see how. You know, when you have the explanation that is being given by all these people, the finance minister, the chief executive of the petroleum.
Do you remember when deregulation started?
I do.
What was the purpose?
I think you should know.
Deregulation was to be able to introduce increments on very regular, small basis. So it doesn't impact on the economy.
Absolutely.
Now, like I said, you are going to have about 20%.
What was the correlation with subsidy?
Sorry?
Deregulation. What's the correlation with subsidy?
Deregulation was to allow you to react quicker to changes in price.
All right.
You see, so that you don't have 20% increment.
Absolutely.
Or 30%, like happens these days.
My point is that you can never run away from this question.
No, and that is why you had the MPA, you know, periodically, they had a fixed time. And I think it was when this government took over that they said they weren't going to go by that, you know, timetable.
All right.
So the issue...
Even the management of the new prices is faulty.
I see. Thank you very much, gentlemen. This is Newsfile. This is your most authoritative news analysis show in town. And we'll move on to the next issue. And I'm sure that in the course of the week, you have also been following the development with the Supreme Court matter. I'm talking about the presidential election petition pending before the justices of the Supreme Court. And you may be aware that the NPP had filed some, what we call in law, interrogatories, asking the EC to answer a few questions. Among the questions that they put for the EC to answer was for the EC to provide detailed lists of the names of the persons who registered, who were registered outside of the country. Now, the EC has provided some answers, but the answers the EC has provided is leading to a lot more questions, because, as we said, it appears the EC is unable to properly mathematically account for some 241,000 voters. All right, I'll start with you, Nana Akomia, with all the questions that are coming up so far in this issue. The NPP suspects that certainly something is going wrong.
Well, the NPP is challenging the validity of the election results that were declared, I think, on the 9th of December. Now, we are challenging the results on the basis that a lot of the votes that were declared and counted and declared were obtained illegally against the law. We have put the law, we have put the votes that were so procured against the law, and we have put the evidence before the courts. We have said, for example, that there were overvotes. Overvotes mean the ballot papers that were given out is less than the ballot papers that were counted in the box. By the rules, if that anomaly is not resolved, those votes should be set aside. And indeed, there were polling stations where overvotes occurred and the votes were set aside. And we are taking that evidence to the court. So if there are other polling stations where there were overvotes and they were not set aside, they go against the law, and we want those votes to be declared invalid. There are a total of 937,000 which were overvotes. We have also said that the laws provide that every voter shall go through biometric verification. There were instances where voters did not go through biometric verification and they were allowed to vote. And by the laws, those votes should be set aside. It's a total of 641,000. There were also polling stations with the same serial numbers. There were also polling stations with the same codes. It should not happen. The votes involved in polling stations with the same serial numbers, polling stations with the same codes, but with different results, total over 2 million. Polling stations where there were no signatures of the presiding officer and so on. So we've taken all our case to court based on law, that this is the law, this is the violation, and this is the evidence.
Let's fast forward to the diaspora votes.
Now, when we filed our petition, primarily the petition was against the Electoral Commission, which conducted the elections. We also pointed out that even the numbers on the register gave cause for concern, that the Electoral Commission has given different numbers as the total electoral roll. And they seem to fuel the perception that there was something very untoward that went on in the elections. When we filed this as part of our petition, the Electoral Commission, in response, sought to explain some of the differences in the numbers as far as the total register is concerned.
In paragraph 6 of its response.
You are a lawyer.
Becoming a famous paragraph 6.
You are a lawyer, so I accept your assistance in this
I don't
matter.
need to be a lawyer to read the petition and the response.
The Electoral Commission in this response sought to explain the difference. It said that, well, it gave a figure of 13.9. Subsequently, following that 13 point, it gave a figure of 14.158. It sought to explain in his response to the court that difference came about because they had to register foreign service officials, students on Government of Ghana scholarships, Ghanaians working with international organizations, and service personnel. The trouble is that the difference between the figures is over 241,000 votes. It is very difficult for anybody to agree that the foreign registrations, the foreign service officials, the students on Ghana government scholarship, the Ghanaians working with international organizations, and then Ghanaian service people abroad can total 241,000. Indeed, when the Electoral Commission responded, it had only provided numbers up to about 705. So there's a huge gap still that has to be accounted for. And we are waiting for the courts to convene so that this matter will be interrogated. We are very keen to show that all of these irregularities tie in to systematic irregularity and I don't want to use fraud now because of the implications. For example, the other auxiliaries that tie in with this discrepancy in the numbers. If you took the NPP vote and you total the presidential and you total the parliamentary, the difference is about 40. If you took the NDC, you total John Mahama's votes, you total the parliamentary votes, the difference between John Mahama's votes and the parliamentary is over 400,000. That means 400,000 people went to vote John Mahama and didn't vote for the NDC parliamentary candidate. We believe there's a problem. You had polling stations. Normally, they will add 5 to 10% extra ballot papers. So if the ballot papers are 500, they will add 5% or 10% to take account of spoiled ballot papers and so on. But you have those polling stations that we are contesting, the 11,916 polling stations. You look at the extra ballots, the numbers on the register for those 11,000 polling stations, they are about 7.1 million. You look at the ballot papers that were issued, they were almost double. And we are going to present all of this evidence to the court because all of this evidence is on the face of the record. We are taking records that are the official documents that were provided by the Electoral Commission.
Okay, if I may ask this question, you talk about the EC accounting for, in its response, accounting for 705, persons who were voted in the 4 categories that it had listed. But do you find in the calculation, do you find a new two different categories? The EC is talking about insertions made at 400 registration centers and the EC's district offices of the names of persons who claimed to have voter ID cards but had been inadvertently omitted. And another group, which he refers to, the data recovered from damaged registration machines and backup pen drives. Still doesn't add up.
Where are the numbers for those? They didn't put any numbers for those that you mentioned. They put numbers for the foreign registration. The original explanation was that these were the different numbers came about after the foreign registration. And so we said, well, give us the details of the foreign registration. It comes with 705. Then it says that there are all these categories with no numbers. But these issues will be interrogated properly before the courts. We are going to adduce other auxiliary evidence that will show very clearly to every Ghanaian that there was a pattern to twist the vote. And we'll show that very clearly.
As far as you're concerned, the court will take the EC to the cleaners.
We are interested in justice, not taking anybody to the cleaners. We are just interested that the proper thing is done, especially for our elections. Elections are at the core of our democracy. If you don't have the sovereign will of the people properly reflected, you have nothing. So we are not interested in taking anybody to the cleaners. We are interested in showing that there was something terribly wrong and that justice should be done in the interest of our country. That's what we are interested in.
Dr. Park, how do you appreciate the development so far?
Well, first of all, I think we have to put this whole issue into proper perspective. It is allowed, obviously, by the Constitution for any citizen who feels that something went amiss in an election to go to court and seek redress. And therefore, if the MPP has chosen to do so, it is certainly within the context of the law of the land to do that. The point is that the petition is in court. It is being looked at. And of course, all the parties involved now have the chance to present evidence and to ask for further and better particulars to help them make their case or to defend themselves as per the rules of engagement. Now, there could be a number of reasons why perhaps there is some discrepancy regarding the numbers that have now come public and are subject of this discussion. I mean, we are dealing with human beings, and human beings have a tendency to engage in practices that sometimes may not even be intentional. But depending on where you stand, what your motive is, and the factors that are influencing your action, your interpretation and the way you see such human errors can be determined. So I think that by and large, I am not too worried about the processes in court. I am one of those who legitimately believes that the election was free, fair, and transparent, that the right candidate won. And I truly cannot understand and believe that anybody could have intentionally engaged in and orchestrated a process that would cause a party that lost the presidential election to think that 4.6 million Ghanaian citizens should be disenfranchised. So I think that we just have to be patient and allow the processes to unfold in court. But this tendency
but
of
when
some
you get
trying
patient, sometimes you are tempted to be worried.
Why should you be?
If
you believe in the rule of law.
I'm putting a question.
Yes.
You are tempted to be worried if you have an electoral roadmap that appears to act so dynamically that there doesn't appear to be a point at which it stops its additions. But more importantly, the petitioner simply said, can you explain the jump from 13.9 million
to
plus
14.
to 14.1, plus? And in your attempt to explain, you're accounting for, you are giving foreign diaspora votes, let's call it so. And in your attempt to explain that, you only provide for 705. 241,000, voters. It appears you can't explain. You must be worried about
Samson, that. I don't disagree with the premise based on which you have posed the question. But that does not mean that there was an intentional or deliberate effort somewhere to favor another candidate. So what I'm saying is that the Electoral Commission certainly is a constitutionally mandated entity that we all expect to undertake this venture, which, led to the election and all of that. I'm not holding brief for the Electoral Commission.
Okay.
My particular problem is the tendency or some of the discourse that has gone on around the challenges that, some have identified, trying to suggest that there was a deliberate ploy, a deliberate effort somewhere to try and influence the conduct, or if you like, misconduct of the Electoral Commission to favor a particular candidate. And I worry greatly because since the case has gone to court, where we believe that is where it should be, let the lawyers argue it, let the evidence be adduced, let all of these critical questions come up about why there is a disparity in the numbers. Those who have now taken it upon themselves to engage in the public rhetoric, inflaming passions and inciting people.
Some will say
that is my worry.
Some will say the opposition could be justified. You are saying yes, there's no any deliberate.
I am saying let the court deal with it.
There's no any
and
deliberate attempt.
Nobody is going to prevent.
There's no any
the court
deliberate
from doing what
attempt
it has to do.
to engage in any exercise that will favor the one against the other.
That is correct.
But when the opposition, at the very critical moment, tells you, look, hold on, let's give ourselves a little time and compute these numbers properly, and you give an attitude that, they can go and hang.
Samson, but that's not fair. Well, what we have to understand is that even the opposition at the time, the basis for which they had requested that time lag, if you like, was not what we are seeing today. I mean, very simply, the polling stations that they cited at the onset, some of them have not even appeared in some of their own documentation, including the petition. So, look, this is a developing process. I am sure at the end of the day, we will get to the bottom of it. But it is very important that we do not engage in practices and pronouncements that have the capacity to influence people to engage in behavior that could derail the very democracy that has allowed us to be able to petition and to go to court. That is my biggest worry. I'm not worried about what is going on in court. That is the way it should be.
I think that's the position every Ghanaian shares.
But some do not agree. They do what we call double speak. They say one thing in court, they go and stand on platforms, and they make pronouncements that are very dangerous to the survival of our democracy. And that, I don't think, is acceptable.
Thank you very much, Dr. Park. I come to you, Ima.
Yeah. Something again, I'm at a complete loss. When I just take the last statement Dr. Park made, with regards to people going to court, say something, and then find themselves on another platform saying some other thing, I'm wondering who amongst the people who are in court, be it the petitioners, Nana Akufo-Addo, Dr. Bawumia, Jacob Lamte, or their legal team, which of them has found himself on any platform and has said what? You see, this thing where we think that it is convenient. Please, Samson, as the host of this program,
and I understood.
I want to be given some regard for this thing. Where when I'm speaking, I have this interjection. I can do it. This program is a very well respected program. I don't want to do this. This is my first time on this.
Thank you very much.
Please, just hold on
for respecting that. Go on.
The statement was just made here, and I believe it was not for those of us here in the studio, but for the viewing and listening public. And then you made the categorical statement that you worry when people go to court, say something, and come out and they find themselves on a platform. And I'm saying those who are engaged in this matter, unless we have one of them who we can point out. And this thing where we want to always twist things has been going on. You again said that. The issue of the polling stations that were mentioned. Doc, I'm wondering whether if you have the information we have. You just said that you didn't mention any polling station that was mentioned from the onset, which is not found its way in what we have in court now. Let's stop this type of a thing, because what is going on is not a child's play. It is a serious thing that has affected our electoral process. Samson, you are just reading the response of the Electoral Commission to the interrogatories of the petitioners. And you are talking about the issue of the register being dynamic, where they are looking at and all those things. The issue on the table for discussion is about when the petitioners presented their petition and then stated the various areas that Nana talked about. And one of the points they raised was the issue of the overbloated register. Now, in response to the petition, the Electoral Commission states in their response that it happened as a result of foreign Ghanaians who work with foreign missions, peacekeeping, our security officers who are on peacekeeping, and students. Okay,
let me read the EC's response to you. It's, in answer to paragraph 12 of the petition, the second respondent, that's the EC, says that the initial provisional figure it announced of registered voters was 13,909,366. After the conduct of registration of foreign service officials, students abroad on government scholarship, other Ghanaians working abroad in international organizations, and the late registration of service personnel returning from the international peacekeeping duties, it announced a figure of 14,158,890, representing the raw entries in the registration database. So this was the response.
So, something with what you've read.
No, but that's not
you are a lawyer. If you just
response.
oppose it to what they have put out there after we put the interrogators, after the petitioners' lawyers put the interrogators in place, does it fit in? Because you find the Electoral Commission talking about replacement of those who had cards, or is it their cards missing, and then some court ruling for some registration to be done. I remember Akurugudabo was one of those areas where they were supposed to go and register. And again, when it comes to that, you find a big problem with regards to the process. Because we have, thank God, everything that is done is under our laws. You have laws as to how our register should look like. I stand for correction, but I guess about, is it 60 or 90 days that after every registration that is done, to get it matured, let me call it this way, it has to go through this process. I don't believe that the registration that was done after the court ruling for the people of Akugudabo, it went through the gestation process.
That's a peculiar situation.
Absolutely. No, because the response, I'm speaking to the response of the EC. When it comes to what they are telling us now, which is totally different from what they said after they responded to the petitioner's petition. So if you look at what is going on, again, talking about Ghanaian security officials on peacekeeping, with the response they've given to the interrogators, it is nowhere, there is nowhere it is mentioned that a single soldier or police who was on peacekeeping was registered. And for that matter, they have put the number as part of the 705 or the areas they are putting in there.
But they gave you the breakdown of those who had returned and were were home, they gave you the breakdown of those in Volta, those in Bronga, Hafo, breakdown, each one of them, they told you the numbers.
But they told us the numbers that have not stated that those people were registered. These are two different things. I mean, as for the numbers, for instance, if you take Ghanaians, you know, at our foreign missions and foreign organizations, they've given us the breakdown. But it is out of that same breakdown, which amounts to over 2,700 or so, which they are telling us that they were able to register just 705. So for anybody to think that there is no problem with regards to this process, and for that matter, the MPP, led by its flag bearer and the running mate and the party's chairman, are at a wild goose chase. For us, just like Nana has said, we are putting our matter before courts. The issues would come up like it has come up, where we find strange responses, which is contradicting first responses from the same institution that we would have the opportunity to comment.
Right.
Our comments in a studio like this or elsewhere would have no bearing to what is going to happen in court. But like Nana Kumia said, everything that we have gone through, painstaking time going through in the pink sheets, like I have just a few here to show to you, where it is indicated that when he said same polling stations with same serial numbers, which should not be, because the serial numbers should remain unique for every polling station. Then you have different polling stations, polling stations with different polling stations with same serial numbers. Again, when you move on, you have ballot issues. And these are not things that have been put out there by the MPP. We are talking about pink sheets.
All right.
And these are Electoral Commission official documents, where when they appointed people to work. And again, it was not polling agents who were the ones writing on the pink sheets. The electoral officer goes to field and he indicates that ballots issued at the polling station is 277. Then when he is accounting for ballots in the ballot box, he's telling us that it is 219. We are not talking about 2, 3, 4 of these pink sheets where we have these anomalies, and for that matter, we say these are human errors.
Okay.
These things have amounted to hundreds of thousands.
I'm very careful the way I put my questions to you, gentlemen, because I find that there is a heavy dose of legalese where we have gotten to.
Absolutely.
But unfortunately, we may not have the capacity to interrogate them in that fashion. What is your response to the developments? It's a very open question. You can deal with it. But in respect of where we are now.
Absolutely. First of all, the New Patriotic Party. The New Patriotic Party flag bearer and the entirety of the New Patriotic Party can dream their dream and scheme their scheme. President John Dramani Mahama is the president of Ghana today, and so shall he remain tomorrow. That is in no doubt, and nothing is going to change.
We'll move briefly into his pledge to respect the Supreme Court's decision.
Samson, don't be in a hurry. When this whole biometric issue came about, it was the MPP through their auxiliary group, the Dankwa Institute, that championed the use of biometric registration in our country. And they made us believe, all Ghanaians, that with biometric registration, no one can be cheated. We should all be for it. We said, all right. We are for good governance. And if our friends in opposition feel that we ought to do something about our electoral register, so be it. We embraced and accepted it. Government pumped in a lot of money into biometric registration. Immediately after that, they told us that, but we would have to go through verification. And that no verification, no votes. And that with verification, nobody can be cheated. We said, all right, and accepted it. Went into an election. They performed poorly, didn't have a message, lost badly, and they would not accept defeat. To the extent that they are contradicting their flag bearers' own position, their flag bearers' own pledge to key institutions, to ordinary men and women of our country, to their Sante Hene Otumfo Osetutu, when they met with him in Kumasi, that he would accept the verdict of the people of Ghana. And what are we seeing? He's in court.
We will get to that because the
What
chiefs,
are we seeing?
The chiefs and particularly
Ochihini
feels that this is an insult.
I think
you want to
he's
say that he
about-
doesn't have a mind of his
I think he
own.
wants to talk about the peace pact. But I'm at a loss when he says anybody is contradicting the flag bearer. The flag bearer himself is in court.
Hold it.
He is in court raising the issues. When he signed that pact, he didn't indicate that when there are any problems with the
Are you going to
outcome-
allow me to make my point?
You want to be allowed?
Go on.
You've
go
had
on.
it.
Really?
You've had
You
your
go on.
say.
You
I
go
thought
on.
you were doing
You
this.
have
You go
had
on.
your say.
No, but that doesn't mean that
you've
you
had
should-
your say.
you should
You know,
do it back to
you
him
go,
like that.
you go on, and you make a pledge. You make a commitment to the people of Ghana that whatever the verdict, whatever the outcome of the election.
Oh, did he say whatever? Remember, Nanado didn't make a blanket statement.
yeah.
Absolutely.
He qualified.
Yeah.
And actually, he was
And he was
chastised
taken on. Yeah, absolutely.
For saying
But,
so.
So stop
it doesn't
spewing out this
defeat the
propaganda
point.
here.
It's not
help you.
propaganda.
You are.
It doesn't defeat the
You are
point that
indeed.
he's made a commitment to accept defeat.
Qualified commitment.
Hold it. It doesn't defeat that statement. And my point is that they are simply sour losers. They claim the Electoral Commission registered and had people vote abroad. You claim. Because
You're not going to take him on every word that he
but you
speaks.
see,
Please.
he should be following
Please,
what's
no,
read.
no,
He
no.
should do a good
No,
job
because-
to listeners.
No, Emmanuel.
Because
Emmanuel,
The
go.
host has read some
No.
document and then
Iman,
he shouldn't be making
Iman,
these
just hold
statements.
on for me. Now, Ras, continue.
Nobody, according to the Electoral Commission, voted abroad. That 705 people
Registered.
were registered, but not voted.
Nobody's saying register voted.
It's
We're
been,
all
it's
talking
been
about registered.
touted time and
Really?
again.
Have you read the court documents?
Would you allow me?
Samson, I'm forced to do this
No,
because
no, you don't have to.
I mean,
You don't have to.
would you allow me?
Yeah. Please go on. He will not do it again.
They talk about the fact that the Electoral Commission cannot account for 200 and was it total number 241,000 people. Forgetting that they had access, full access, unfettered access to all the facts. The Electoral Commission explains that this 241,000 have come about because people in Akuse were not captured when the registration happened. You know, if you would recall, there were issues in Akuse, and that registration in Akuse was put on hold. The Electoral Commission makes the point that Ghanaian peacekeepers returning to Ghana on peacekeeping mission were also captured, and that is part of the 241,000. The Electoral Commission makes the point that many Ghanaians during the exhibition went to the polling stations, and it happened all over. I was a candidate, so I am privy to some of these things. It happened all over, where somebody would go with a voter registration card and did not see his name in the register. All of these people were encapsulated into the register, and that gave us the 241,000 votes they are talking about.
Really?
And
I'm
they
going
make
to cut the spokesperson of the Electoral Commission.
She's not even saying what she's saying. So
Please. and they make it look
I don't believe this.
and they make it look as if they've had some votes, their arms were twisted, and the Electoral Commission did the bidding of the NDC. I mean, you went into an election, you had your polling agents in one of the freest elections in the history of Ghana.
I see.
You lost badly because when you had an opportunity to talk about what you can do for the people of Ghana, you were telling the people of Ghana that yebetu amu keke, yebetu amu keke.
You keep repeating that they lost badly.
Really? They
You've
lost
forgotten that by the EC's figures, you are all dealing with 5 million votes.
No, but they lost badly.
Not in a big.
They lost badly.
No, the
Your
campaign message
candidate-
was not
when,
in a
when
big.
my candidate,
I
when
believe
President
this.
Mahama was telling Ghanaians,
The few Republican
you don't even
listeners
understand the
deserve
slogan in
something
the
better.
BK. It go be keke. When President Mahama was saying, it go be keke, it means things shall be well. Vote for me. I would improve on your lives. I would make sure that we are putting in place social intervention measures to make your life better. Somebody was telling us that yebetu mu keke, as if he had the power and what he was going to do would be what Ghanaians would fall for.
Okay, we can take a break at this point.
Something, let me land. The point I'm making is that, well, you can laugh all you want. You can laugh all you want. That is why I began.
If you pay attention
I'm not
to
paying
them, you will
attention.
be sidetracked.
That is why I began
You
by...
should know the
No,
game. I thought that you were a veteran in it.
That is why I said, I made the point that they can scheme their scheme. So they can sit here and sneer and gesture and laugh. They can plot their plot. President Mahama is the president of our country today and so shall remain tomorrow. No doubt
Prima
about that.
facie.
No doubt about
Prima
that.
facie,
No
because
doubt.
the matter is in court.
The matter is in court. And inshallah, with the evidence that we have,
nothing will change.
Nothing is going to change. He's going to be president for the next 4 years and would run again in 2016 and defeat them.
Thank you very much, Ras Mubarak. You're listening and watching Newsfile. This is your most authoritative. You're welcome back, and thank you very much for keeping your dials on Joy 99.7 FM and also for staying glued to your set on your Joy News channel on Multi TV. Now, there's a little bit of the Supreme Court discussion about the case that we have to bring in here to wrap it up. And my guests have agreed that the rule is that each one of them will do 2 minutes, strictly 2 minutes. If you don't and I cut you off, don't blame me. I'm sure that you're aware that the chiefs from the Eastern region visited the president this last Tuesday, and they were led by the Ochehene, Osajefo Amwetia Ofori-Penyin, and he, during their interaction, asked the president to make a commitment to abide by the Supreme Court's ruling on this matter, and the president did give that commitment, but looked at him in the eye and told him that some of the pronouncements that were being made were not good, political insults and all of that, and that the chiefs know those who were involved in that sort of thing, and that they should point out those people and take the message to them. I'm sure you are aware of the things that have come up as a result of that. There's an NDC group that said that the Ochehene's comments were planted by Nana Addo and his team and all of that. The Ochehene has taken strong exception to that. His lawyers have written demanding an apology. Well, the group says they won't get that apology and all. I want us to just bring that one in briefly and then move on. Now, and I'm also interested, Ima, silly Ghanaian politics again, and forgive me when I say silly Ghanaian politics. We know, and you politicians are good at it. You visit the chiefs. They don't come to you when you are going for elections. So it was expected that the chiefs should rather be sitting in their, comfortable, palaces, and the president will rather come to them and say thank you. And this is going on, and I understand that each region, have lined up. They will go there and say, congratulate the president. What's your remarks about what happened as a result of the visit?
Thank you very much, Ras. Well, something for that.
Don't worry. Don't worry. You're thinking about Ras. No. You're thinking he might punch you.
No, for that point. Because when you were introducing the various topics, you made this comment, and I picked it, and it was just waiting for my turn when this issue comes up. You see, to start with, if you take the Eastern Region House of Chiefs who visited the presidency, the Ochehene did the talking because he is the president of the Eastern Regional House of Chiefs. Now, to answer the question you've just put to me, these chiefs who are coming from the various regional House of Chiefs, and we've seen in the last 2 weeks, they, paying courtesy calls, at the presidency to congratulate the president and bid him farewell. Bid him good
wish
wishes.
Him well.
Wish him well, sorry.
Farewell.
Are not programs that were organized by the chiefs. From what I picked when this whole issue of the Eastern region happened, these are programs that have been organized by the states.
No, my understanding is that the chiefs want to go to the castle, but the castle need to regulate it, and so has put an itinerary for them. So you are told when the president is available for you to visit. I think that's what it is.
Well, then I think that I have to go because this person who I spoke to is a chief from the Eastern region. Because when this thing happened, I wanted to really know. You had comments, certain derogatory comments made about the noble chief, that he deliberately came because he's a relation of the flag bearer of the MPP and he wanted to come and then do these things to the president. So I took time to find out. I would have to get back there and then get to know what exactly the issues are. But, let's even put this whole thing in proper perspective. I guess you guys have the voice of the Ochehene. when he went there. I thought it was going to be played when you were playing the various voices. You know, I saw Wayomi's voice or the tape being played. If that voice had been played, with what I'm going to say, it would have helped it a lot.
Go ahead and say.
I believe that
if you quote him wrongly, I'll tell you.
No, I believe that the majority of your viewers and listeners indeed have listened to the Ochehin, because after this whole buha, some media houses have played his voice, you know, to get to hear, let people hear what exactly he said.
We've played it over and
Yes.
again. Your time is almost up.
The Ochehin talked about parties involved in this matter should accept the verdict. Are you getting it? I don't know why it is the Ochehin singled out President Mahama to say accept the verdict when the court gives gives its judgment.
Right.
He was admonishing all the parties. And in our case, people are saying he should have spoken to Nanado to do same. When Nanado and the team filed the petition in court, and the first assignment they did was to come and address the press at Alisa Hotel.
Right.
The 30 minutes address he gave, he indicated this and went further to do that when he addressed the crowd at the Obra Sport.
Thank you very much.
So I don't see where anybody should think that Nanado has not said he would respect the outcome of the court.
Ras,
Something we live in.
the president threw the challenge back to the Ochehene, that he knows the people should just point them directly and tell them to their faces that they should stop the insult and all of that.
That was in respect of politics of insults. That was in respect of people who don't show civility in our politics. And indeed, we have had moments when another party's presidential candidate has used words like people of little minds in reference to his opponents and so on and so forth. So these are things that do not encourage civility, and there's absolutely no doubt that President Mahama is the embodiment.
If we wanted to count what each party said about the other.
You've never heard that from the president. That's the point I'm making. The point is that His Excellency John Dramani Mahama is the embodiment of civility in our politics. So he was making the point that, politics
you
of
remember
insult,
his sledgehammer thing?
Hold it. He was making the point that...
No, people say he can't escape it.
Hold it. He was saying that, when people are using insulting languages, clearly he's no one who uses insulting language against political opponents. And he treats his opponents with a lot of respect and decorum. Sometimes in manners that make even some of us very uncomfortable. But that is his style, and it must be encouraged. Now, during the campaign, President Mahama and our campaign team went to the Eastern region to campaign. And we wanted to hold a rally at a park in front of the Ochehene's house, Ochehene's palace, rather. There was a sub-chief that came out, vetoed it, that ensured that a platform that was meant for the program, for the rally, was destroyed. Nobody condemned it publicly. Nobody rebuked.
So the argument is that in their presence at the presidency, they should have been apologizing for that one.
Nobody rebuked the sub-chief who relax, my brother. Nobody rebuked this sub-chief. And at the point when our campaign team was being driven away from holding a rally in the Eastern region, the MPP's flag bearer was holding a rally at Manche Agbona.
In fact, your time is up.
Manche Agbona in Ga, understand, means the forecourt of the chief's palace. Now, if it is okay for the MPP flag bearer to hold a rally at Manche Agbona, why should it be difficult? Why should it be difficult for John
Agbona to start with?
Oh, please.
Please.
Oh,
MPP
your time is up. We are running on extra time. Borrowed time.
Sorry.
Gentlemen.
If you don't want our message, I'm not surprised by this at all, because your strategy is to ensure our message doesn't get across.
Okay, so your point is made. Let me now come to you. Nana, 2 minutes on this subject. We need to move to the next subject before we get out of this place. Thank you.
So I don't need to bother myself. You're just misleading.
Totally not worthy of comment.
Absolutely.
Now, let me tell you one thing. That when somebody says, I would accept the results, Nana Akufo-Addo, the NPP, we have accepted the results that were declared. But we disagree. Can you understand that simple point? We disagree. And the laws of the country provide that if you have a problem, this is the way to go. And we have embarked on that way. Can you understand this simple point?
Why hasn't your flag bearer
So can you? So the question then is that what's the point? What's the point of Chihini asking the president?
So what are you talking about? I hope it's a small lesson that you take in your stride. That you can accept something,
gentlemen.
You can accept something but still disagree.
Absolutely.
Okay. So please take that lesson and just move on. Now, Ochehini, he asked the president to accept the results. It is good that our political leaders are pledging that they would respect the Supreme Court's verdict. It is good. But really, it does not lie within the choice of anybody in this country. Whether you are the president, or you are the opposition leader, or you are the policeman on the street, or you are whatever. It doesn't lie in your mouth. The Supreme Court's verdict will be the law. That's it. Whether you like it or not. But it is good if people say we would accept it and all of that. But really, when the verdict is given, that is it.
We live in
There's
Africa.
no
Sorry, it's a very, very bad example. We live in Africa, but we are aware of what governments can do, really.
Oh. Well,
if you want those African examples, then of course you can proceed on that line. But otherwise, the Supreme Court's verdict is the law. And you know that better than I do. On the matter of the insults, the president's answer was very disingenuous. The Ochehini was asking political leaders to restrain their people. There have been attacks from all sides of the political divide. There have been. I don't want to talk about what the president
but the president demonstrates to him that, look at me, take me as an example. But I don't do those dirty politics. You know the people.
No.
Go tell them in their faces.
Something. The Ochehini was saying that political leaders should restrain their people. He didn't say restrain NDC people and the other party is not guilty. He says that political leaders restrain your people. And we all know that. We all know that movements cuts across the.
Did you listen to
because look, something. Let me conclude on this matter. The president himself, just a couple of months ago, had occasion to apologize on behalf of leading members of his party.
And that's a good example.
So when that's what Ochehini is asking for.
Okay. What's your take on this little bit of it? Gentlemen, sorry.
Samson,
yes.
In all honesty, I really felt that it was needless for the Ochehini to have made that request of the president. It was very obvious.
Was it needless to go to Kumasi for that declaration?
That was a separate context.
Okay, move on.
The fact is this. The president, having been sworn in, took an oath. And part of that oath requires him to submit himself to the laws of the Republic of Ghana and to suffer the penalty for it.
Exactly.
So it is a foregone conclusion.
And the penalty is that...
And I actually agree.
The penalty is that if the court makes orders and he, as president, does not respect the orders, it is a crime known as high crime.
Exactly.
And it is grounds for his removal from office.
But the point is this. Even granted that, of course, he was representing the regional House of Chiefs in the Eastern region, and they had to go there, which is part of the process, because every single regional House of Chiefs went there. Even the National House of Chiefs went there.
That's so.
If this was that important a statement that he wanted to make, including the other requests that he suggested, although he says that he was giving counsel about consultation in the appointments of ministers as well as DCs, shouldn't that have been channeled through the National House of Chiefs?
Absolutely.
See, the context of everything, where he comes from, is what has allowed the level of debate about his visit and the pronouncements that he has made to assume the proportions that he have.
I've heard people suggest that, you should also look at it from that point. It gave you an opportunity to see a president who is forthright and bold. Look at the Ochehini in the face and say, you know the people. go to them.
In fact, truly, if you want my honest opinion, I thought that the president's response was very appropriate. Because it is true.
But so if
we all live in
if
this
he gave
country,
him
we
that
all know.
opportunity, why do you say the platform?
We know those who engage in politics of insults. We know those who are born about insulting people.
No,
although the current case is in court, the very same petition on the basis of which the Ochihine is asking for the president's commitment.
But the insult, the truth is that both parties are guilty.
We know that there are people who are going on platforms and calling the president a thief, for example, simply because he has been declared a winner and sworn in.
All right.
Or really? They can't accept and wait.
But others can go
all right.
Gentlemen,
gentlemen, sorry. Thank you, Dr. Park. Thank you, Dr. Park. Gentlemen, Emmanuel. Okay, now let me run by you a few of the text messages. Gentlemen.
Let him know that this is not how this program is run here.
Guys.
We are not in a shouting.
Okay, thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you. Now listen to this. Ima and Ras, listen to this. This is Depot in Wa, that if the EC is struggling to provide the names of about 21,000 people, then it is true that they have rigged the elections. Supreme Court, we want runoff. Now hold on. Justice Abeku Newton Affair, right from Kanda here in Accra, he says, it has now come to light that Dr. Kojo Afarijan, 1, declared the election results with a voters register containing 14 million plus voters. 2, displayed 14 million plus voters as number of voters on the register that he used in declaring the results on the EC's website. 3, gazetted the election results with 14 million plus vote as the figure on the voters register that he used in declaring the election results. Now, this gargantuan inconsistency in the actual number of voters contained in the real voters register alone can form a solid basis for the total cancellation of the 2012 election results. Okay, Dr. Yao Oheming in Manchester writes, for Dr. Park, the irregularities do not have to be deliberate for results to be invalidated. If they have the capacity to affect the results, they should be considered. If they are pervading and appear skewed statistically to certain polling stations and constituencies, the case for invalidating is even more compelling. Now, Silas Samuel Amo in Kenya say, right, and that's the last message I'll take. We are running out of time. Right from day one, the EC was seen as being manipulated. This was seen in the answers given by the EC when important questions were raised. We are now talking about 241,000 voters and more that cannot be accounted for. Let's wait. We'll get to know in court. Where did they come from? I really believe in the judiciary to be firm and independent, but not timorous souls, to help the good people of Ghana to unravel the mystery surrounding the 2012 presidential election. Thank you very much for your messages. We've run out of time. We have just 5 minutes, and I'm wondering what we can do, because you won't stick to 1 minute. You see, when news people interview you, we are able to play 1 minute of your sound. That makes complete sense. That makes complete sense. But when we are having a discussion, you hardly can do that. Okay. Now,
if you let Nana start, we are not going to get our.
If I let Nana start, we are not going to end. Okay, let's start. I think this is a very simple issue. We can do a minute each on. The Wemi is gone to court. Now he's been able to get his accounts unfrozen. Prosecution appears to be sloppy with the discharge of their duties. What do you say about the developments?
Well, the prosecution appears to be sloppy. But you know, Amidu, who was the Attorney General, said that this Woyome payout cannot happen unless there was connivance and collusion. So it is not just sloppiness. The whole case is based on collusion and connivance. So it is difficult. I mean, Woyome himself, the courts of Ghana, they themselves slapped a fine on the government of Ghana because they say you are sloppy. And they fine them 500 cedis. And then the government appealed against the 500. And then Goyome himself now is saying that you people, you are so sloppy. You are wasting my time. Now the courts have started giving Goyome back his money. And Goyome is now suggesting to government that these are the witnesses. Go and call them. So please, it's a joke.
Doc, how does it sound to you, listening to all of that's going on?
Well, I don't agree with the theory that there is a collusion and a connivance. I think that we have a general problem with our justice delivery system. And I know of other instances where other high-profile cases have sort of dragged on and have not been properly prosecuted by, the Attorney General's department. So I've argued, I've had a very long-standing qualms with the nature of our justice delivery system in this country. And so rather than just trying to fault everybody, including government, I think we have to point the accusing finger where it belongs. The prosecutors should be up and doing and should make sure that they serve the good people of Ghana because they are being paid by the taxpayers' money.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Clement Apak. I'm sorry, gentlemen. I'm sorry, gentlemen. We've run out of time.
All right, 30 seconds.
30 seconds. Let me hear what you say.
30 seconds. Now, the point that people lined up, government attempted to get chiefs to come and visit the president is clearly not true. The chiefs made a specific request to the presidency, and they are paying courtesy calls on the president.
Is that what you're
no,
do you support that?
I have the right to choose.
30 seconds.
I have the right to
30 seconds. Yeah, 30 seconds.
I mean, on why it's
about
what
the
you call
Wyoming
it,
case, just like Nana said, it is about collusion and cover-up. But before I...
Okay, these are matters that have been pleaded in court. Let's see how it ends,
Dr. Park, you are a member of the National Media Commission. I guess you are aware that some stations have some problems. I'm pleading with you to try and see how you can resolve this.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. And thank you also for watching on your Joy News channel, on Multi TV, and listening to us on Joy 99.7 FM, on Love FM in Kumasi, and over a dozen of affiliate stations across the country. I am Samson Ladi Ayenini. My guests who have been doing the discussion have been Dr. Clement Apak. He is the convener of the pressure group, Governance Forum for Justice and Governance and Justice, is it?
Yes.
Good. And then you have Emmanuel Asigri. He is a former DC and a member of the NPP Communications Team 2012. Now